It's still afternoon, evening hasn't started. Okay, perfect. So we'll start at sharp 4 o'clock. There are still 10 minutes to go. We'll start at sharp 4 o'clock. Assign you control, or if you want, I'll keep flipping the screen. Just tell me when to go next. I'll keep flipping the screen.
Okay, okay, fine.
Yeah.
So I welcome you all. If you guys are attending this event for the first time and you've not attended our events in the past, I'll just take 5 minutes of your time to tell you about us. So me and Ayush, we are the co-founders of Finvents Network Private Limited. And what we are trying to do over here is we conduct regular webinars with master investors. So Ayush, if you can go on to the next slide, next two slides. Yes. So this is about just a brief thing about us. We have an active mailing list of about 2,700 members, and we have already conducted more than 11 free webinars. And in the future, for December, we are also planning to conduct one more free webinar after this event. So if you want to be invited for that as well, I think you have already filled the Google form. So you will automatically get invited to that event as well. But starting 2021, January 2021, we will be conducting paid webinars as well as free webinars. So we have associated ourselves with about 24 speakers.
I think Abhimanyu, you got muted. Just unmute yourself if possible.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
As I told you, we have associated ourselves with 24 speakers, and these speakers will be conducting either paid or free webinars with us. So I'd like you to show the speaker list up next in the next slide. So these are some of the names which we have associated with. Can you go on the next page, Ayush? Yes. So our speaker list, as you can see, we have associated with Vivek Mashrani, Arpit Bhargav, Srinivashan G, Rishikesh Kale, Pankaj Singhal, Rudesh Virani, Neet Shah, Lalit Kumar Rathi, Ishmohit Arora, Avinash Gorashakar, Gurjeev Anand, Gagandeep, and there are more. Can you go to the next slide, Ayush? Yes. And the remaining 12 are Sanjay Kumar, Avik Mitra, Ankit Kanodia, Abhishek Murarka, Suchi Nahar, Debashri Chatterjee, Ayush Agarwal, Kumar Saurabh, Soumya Malani, Neil Bahal, Ashwin Bajaj, and Ayush Agarwal. So these are, can you go back to the about sheet, Ayush? So these are the speaker list. We have associated ourselves with them, and they will be either conducting free events with us or they'll be conducting paid. We have
I
a
would just
plan to
like to
conduct.
interrupt you for 1 minute, Abhimanyu. Guys, can you hear Abhimanyu? Can you just say yes, no? Because I am seeing here voice gone, voice gone. I am seeing from, yeah, because I was seeing from two, three people. Okay, perfect. Yeah, sorry for interrupting you.
That's okay. So as I told you, these are the speakers we have associated ourselves. Out of the 24 speakers, 18 of them will be conducting paid events with us, which brings to exactly 36 paid events, and four of them to six of them will be conducting free events with us. In the future, we may associate ourselves with more speakers, but for now, these are our plans. We plan to conduct 36 paid events, and you will get access to at least 12 free events. So even if you don't want to opt in for the paid webinars which we will be conducting, but I do recommend you guys to join for the paid webinars because their cost will be very minuscule, because we ourselves are retail investors, and we are actually trying to create a value over here. So as I told you now, we are offering this 36 paid webinars in a whole club offer, and we are calling it as our annual membership. So up next, I'd like you to go through the benefits of our annual membership which we are offering. Yes. So exactly, we are offering the following benefits as you can see. So starting 2021, we'll be officially launching our social network website. So our website, if you have not visited already, it is you can go and visit it. I will also be linking the website link after the event or and before the event as well. The website is finvents.in. So over there, we have created a basic social network just for made just specifically for investors. And in our annual membership, we are giving you the following benefits. First of all, you'll get access to the 36 paid events which I just told you about. Other than this, you'll also be getting access to business case studies or premium blogs. So what are these business case studies? These business case studies may be specifically about certain stocks. They might be about certain sectors. They might be some about certain companies or certain businesses. We do not know yet, but we have hired certain in-house editors who are very good writers, who have very good views all over the internet, and they are very known about their blogs. And we have hired them to write these 36 to 48 business case studies for us, and you will be getting this as an added benefit inside your annual membership subscription. Other than this, you will also be getting access to a screener.in template where I don't know if most of you are knowing about screener.in or not, but screener.in is quite famous, and you can basically that is going to be acting as a valuation template which we have created ourselves by our research. Other than that, you'll be also getting added to a WhatsApp group where we conduct and hold regular discussions about companies, about various companies we are watching, about various stocks we are watching. But of course, these will not be recommendations for us. We are just going to be adding you as discussion holders. And you'll also be getting access to certain company primers which we have made. What are these company primers? Basically, you will be getting access to how we go about selecting companies, and I think that finishes all the specific benefits which we have related to our annual membership. And it's already 4 p.m. now. I don't know if Ishmohit has joined or not.
Ishmohit, have you joined the meeting? Could you, if you've joined, just unmute and tell me.
No,
I'm
he
trying
cannot
to
unmute.
search. Oh, okay, just a second. Ishmohit, just use the chat if possible and tell me, or if you can WhatsApp me, because I'm trying to find you on the meeting dashboard. Okay, wait, I found him.
Am I audible, Ayush?
Yeah, let me see if I have made the. No, it's
Yes.
the late Ishmohit. Yeah. Okay, right. Okay. So I made you the presenter of the meeting, Ishmohit. Let me just start the recording and then we can start. So, okay, we've started the recording, Ishmohit. Now I'm handing it over to you. Both me and Abhimanyu are on mute. Now it's on mute completely. Yeah.
Just a second. Right. Is it visible? The presentation?
Yeah, it's visible. It's visible.
So shall we start in another 2 minutes?
Definitely, we can start in another 2 minutes. We can start in another 2 minutes.
Right.
I'll pause the recording. Just a second.
No worries.
Guys, request everyone to just put their cameras as well as mics on hold. I know it will be a very tiring type of not tiring. The word should be a very heavy request from all of you to be on silent mode for 2 hours time or 1.5 hours time, but you will really be learning something well. Matlab, even when I hear Ishmohit, I learn a lot from him. And Ishmohit, if you could just tell people about, if I am not wrong, you have published something about Deepak Nitrite today. So while more people are joining in the next 5 6 minutes, uh, if you could tell people about what you have published, if I am not wrong, you have published a deep dive of Deepak Nitrite. I think about its history, its business segments, its all economies of scale and valuation, and also if you could tell them where they could go and they could find the visualization and the YouTube video and all those things. So we could also share a backlink of the same to all the people who join the meeting.
Right. So basically, today we published the video of Deepak Nitrite on our YouTube channel, and we met a couple of distributors of phenols as well. So one distributor was by the name of Shubham Chemicals, and again that guy distributes nearly 8,000 tons of phenol per month. So nearly 1 lakh tons of phenol per annum. So we went and so we went and met the distributor. We did a lot of subtle, but well, we got a very positive feedback about the professionalism of the management, right? That the execution का तो track record दिखता ही है numbers में, but even from distributors काफी अच्छा feedback मिला about the professionalism of the management. And we also talked to someone who has a performance products plant. तो जो OBA करके इनका एक product है, ऑप्टिकल ब्राइटनिंग एजेंट, तो उसमें से इनका एक कंपेटिटर है गुजरात में ही, तो उससे हमारी बात हुई थी। तो ही टोल्ड मी कि इट्स अ कमोडिटाइज्ड बिजनेस। जो 1-2 साल में आपको प्रॉफिट दिख रहा है इसके अंदर, दैट हैज बीन एक्स्ट्रॉर्डिनरी बिकॉज़ चाइना में एक प्लांट शट डाउन हो गया है। तो केमिकल इंडस्ट्री में इस चीज का ध्यान बहुत रखना है कि वेदर द थिंग वुड बी ट्रांजिएंट और वो मतलब परमानेंट रहेगा ये ट्रेंड या टेम्परेरी रहेगा। So that is very interesting, and scuttlebutt helps a lot. Like go meet distributors. मतलब what we also do is कि कितनी बारी तो like I sit on India Mart and वहां से हम लोगों के नंबर निकाल लेते हैं just to get an idea about what the company does, और जो distributor हैं तो उनका क्या feedback है company के बारे में. And most of the people are open to meet. It is not like that. Most of the people are open to converse as well. Does take some time to build that type of acumen, but if you just keep at it तो आपको काफी आइडिया लगेगा। दीपक नाइट्राइट का जो डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर है फिनॉल का, वी हैड अ वर्ड विद देम बाय द नेम ऑफ शुभम केमिकल्स। यहाँ उनका ऑफिस दिल्ली में ही है, एंड पहले वो इंपोर्ट करते थे, तो उन्होंने फिनॉल का पूरा इकोनॉमिक्स बता दिया बेसिकली कि ये लोग फिनॉल के अंदर आए क्यों हैं। एंड ही इज बीन डिस्ट्रीब्यूटिंग फिनॉल फॉर द लास्ट 35 years now. So just imagine the kind of domain knowledge he would have about the product itself. So just gives you like a lot of idea about the company. And that's the whole idea. Like all the videos you'll see on our channel, so our idea is to study the economics of a company. Because without studying the supply side or the economics of a company, it becomes very difficult to value businesses. बोलना बहुत easy है value करना, but valuation is an art. तो आज ही मैं किसी का question देख रहा था CCL products पे, तो CCL products last 4-5 years में hasn't done anything. One of the reasons is कि coffee consumption grows at 1 or 2%, and CCL is gaining market share, but last like 15-20 years ago, market share was very less. Today, market share is at 10 to 11%. तो आप कितना मार्केट शेयर गेन कर सकते हो ऐसी इंडस्ट्री में जो 1% पे ग्रो कर रही है? दैट बिकम्स challenging, right? Because you need to put that kind of scenarios in your mind while valuing businesses as well. So I think with this, shall we start, Ayush?
Sure, we can start. We can start. I'll just start the recording again. Okay, the recording is starting. The recording has started again. Okay, we'll start.
Right, great. So in today's session, we'll be presenting a five bucket framework. So this is something which has worked for me, which still works for me, and it becomes very easy to classify businesses into five buckets because most of the businesses have these five buckets. Most of the businesses have these kind of ratios इनबिल्ट इनटू द लाइक वो बिजनेस के अंदर ही इनबिल्ट है। तो एक बार एग्जांपल्स देंगे, प्रैक्टिकल केस स्टडीज लेंगे इस प्रेजेंटेशन में पूरी। एंड बिफोर वी स्टार्ट आई थिंक आई विल just put out the disclaimer that the content of the presentation is only meant for education purpose and nothing should be construed as an investment advice. Please consult your financial advisor before acting on anything. And registration status, we are not SEBI registered advisors. Maybe in 6 months' time, we'll get the SEBI registration. So, but currently we are not SEBI registered. So, starting with a very generic term, which is very loosely used in in today's world, that is a moat. And why do I say it is very loosely used? Because moat is a very rare thing. It is not so common. Like हर businesses में आपको moat नहीं मिलेंगे. एंड द बिगेस्ट फीचर ऑफ अ कैपिटलिस्ट सोसाइटी, अगर हम कैपिटलिस्ट सोसाइटी की बात करते हैं तो बिगेस्ट फीचर इज फ्री कंपटीशन, राइट? कोई भी आके किसी से भी compete कर सकते हैं। सपोज इफ यू सेट अप अ शॉप, आप अपने घर के पास एक दुकान लगाते हैं और आपकी दुकान काफी अच्छी चल रही है, तो व्हाट विल हैपन, आपको देखते देखते दो तीन लोग अपनी दुकान और भी खोल लेंगे। तो दीज थिंग्स हैपन बिकॉज वी लिव इन अ कैपिटलिस्ट सोसाइटी। कैपिटलिज्म का एसेंस क्या है? एसेंस ऑफ कैपिटलिज्म लाइज इन ओपन फ्री मार्केट competition. And whenever someone is making returns that are more than their cost of capital, soon others will see the returns. एंड जैसे ही बाकी लोग रिटर्न देखेंगे तो आपका जो कैसल है आपके पास, जो आप बीच में रिटर्न्स कमा रहे हैं, जहां पे आपका रिटर्न ऑन इन्वेस्टेड कैपिटल आपके कॉस्ट ऑफ कैपिटल से ज्यादा है, कोई भी अगर लंबे समय के लिए किसी भी बिजनेस में चलता है तो कंपेटिटर्स विल स्टार्ट अटैकिंग दैट बिजनेस। बिकॉज आप खुद ही एग्जाम्पल लीजिए, मैं अपना आपको एग्जाम्पल देता हूँ। तो बेसिकली आई हैव टू फुटबॉल ग्राउंड्स एंड टू क्रिकेट ग्राउंड्स एज वेल। तो वी हैव दिस टर्फ फैसिलिटीज। तो इन दिल्ली 2-3 साल के लिए कोई भी नहीं आया। फॉर 2-3 years वी वर लाइक वर्चुअली मोनोपोली इन द रीजन वी आर। एंड if I just tell you, the payback of the business was 6 months. माने 6 months में we broke even in the business. Like in the football ground, 6 to 7 months में we got the payback. बट नाउ व्हाट हैज हैपेंड इज दैट पीपल हैव सीन अस। तो बेसिकली हम लोगों ने थोड़ी सी इनोवेशन करी थी। हमने स्कूल्स के अंदर जाके टाई अप करे थे कि स्कूल का ग्राउंड हमने लीज करा था 5-7 years के लिए। स्कूल के बच्चे दिन में खेलते थे, हम रात को ग्राउंड लेते थे। एंड लाइट्स वाइट्स लगी हुई थी टिल, मतलब ग्राउंड यूज्ड टू रन टिल 1 AM 1:30 AM एंड वी यूज्ड टू टेक द ग्राउंड एट 4 PM के आसपास। Now, but what has happened, like in last 6 months, seeing the returns that we are earning for the last 2-3 years, a lot of people have started setting up their own grounds in like nearby our area only. So this location maybe many other people are coming, and this is the natural law of capitalism. Unless or until we have some superior advantage, तो हम ये 10 sources की बात करेंगे, we cannot keep the competition out. तो आज हम एशियन पेंट्स की बात करते हैं, टाइटन की बात करते हैं, इतने बिजनेसेस की बात करते हैं। What goes underappreciated is that these businesses have a very long competitive advantage period. माने ये अपना जो रिटर्न ऑन इन्वेस्टेड कैपिटल है, कॉस्ट ऑफ कैपिटल के ऊपर काफी समय के लिए कमा सकते हैं, क्योंकि these guys can keep the competition out due to some unique sources which we'll just discuss, right? एंड साथ साथ वन वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग टू अंडरस्टैंड इज, जो हम अभी आगे बात भी करेंगे, कि मोट में भी दो टाइप्स के मोट होते हैं। तो आई थिंक नेक्स्ट प्रेजेंटेशन में वील जस्ट गो टू दैट, बट लेट्स जस्ट सी द सोर्सेज ऑफ मोट दैट इज आर। A moat protects the return on invested capital and it stops the entry of competition. The different sources of moats are as follows. So basically you need to have a castle, and उस castle के आसपास ये 10 sources हैं. Suppose if this is your castle, right? And इस castle के अंदर you are making ROIC, आपका ROIC 20-25% है, आपका cost of capital let's assume इंडिया में 7-8% के आसपास है. तो यहाँ पे जो ये ब्रिक वॉल्स है कैसल की, वो इन 10 सोर्सेज से बनी हुई है। तो ये ब्रिक वॉल्स तब गिरना स्टार्ट होंगी जब ये 10 सोर्सेज इतने ज्यादा स्ट्रांग नहीं होंगे। एंड टू फाइंड सच बिजनेसेस, आपको मैं हार्डली बता दूं, नॉट मोर देन 70 to 80 businesses are there in India which might have these very very strong moats, and like which might have very very strong moats, जो ROIC 20-25% के ऊपर कमा सकते हैं। 70 to 80 में से भी हार्डली 20-25 businesses ऐसे हैं which have been doing this for the past 30 years now, 20-30 years है। So the first source is switching cost. सो आज जो हमने दीपक नाइट्राइट की एक वीडियो करी थी रिलीज, तो उसमें जो फाइन एंड स्पेशलिटी ये केमिकल डिवीजन है, उससे पहले हमने संजय भट्टाचार्य का एक एग्जांपल दिया। सो in that example what you will notice is that switching cost gets built into the businesses. So suppose, just to give you an example, suppose today if I talk about this business by the name of alkylamines, right? Apart from alkylamines, there is one more business by the name of PI Industries. There is a Syngene, there is a Suven, there is a DV's Laboratories, there is a Garware Technical Fibers. All these businesses have switching cost inbuilt. बिकॉज सपोज हम अगर हम क्रैम्स की बात करते हैं, कॉन्ट्रैक्ट रिसर्च एंड मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सर्विसेज प्लेयर्स, अब आपने अपना टेक्नोलॉजी ट्रांसफर कर दिया। सपोज यूर अ ग्लोबल इनोवेटर, सपोज यूर फाइजर, फाइजर इज वन ऑफ द ग्लोबल इनोवेटर्स, एंड यू हैव ट्रांसफर्ड द इंटायर टेक्नोलॉजी टू अ कॉन्ट्रैक्ट मैन्युफैक्चरर। Just imagine how difficult it would be to switch, right? And for each and every molecule, you only have one or two suppliers. So what gets underappreciated about these players is that DV's has been making an operating margin of 35% plus. It has been above 33-34% for more than a decade. कैपिटलिस्ट सोसाइटी में आपको 33-34% ऑपरेटिंग मार्जिन कौन कमाने देगा? जस्ट थिंक अबाउट इट वंस, राइट? So this is what the secret sauce of DVs is: switching cost. So you must have seen that we talk about a lot of contract manufacturers like CRAMS players, basically in pharmaceuticals. I do not like the pharmaceutical division in itself. I do not like the formulation players because there are too many black swan events that can happen over there. But I do prefer the contract manufacturers. Just to give you an example, a contract manufacturer like Heikel. I'm not invested in Heikel, but just to give you an example, in last 20 years of their operating history, they haven't even had one US FDA adverse observation. यानी US FDA की आज तक भी एक खराब observation नहीं है, because you are just a contract manufacturer, you're getting the technology from the customer itself. So वहाँ पे एक जो compliance है that becomes easier. DV's के case में there was only one US FDA observation in the last 25-30 years. Again, that tells you in terms of risk, this business has lesser risk than a formulation player. So once you start studying the supply chains of businesses, this gives you a very, very, very deep idea into which segment that you have to look at. किस segment में ROIC ज़्यादा है, किस segment में risk कम है, because we are in this game to earn risk adjusted returns. We are not in this game just to make returns. We are here to earn risk adjusted returns. तो आज काफी लोग cyclicals पे भी bullish हो रहे हैं, but I would always prefer caution over returns. You have to remember risk because when the going is good, अब काफी लोगों ने 2017 2018 का जो डाउनटर्न है नहीं देखा होगा, but I think that downturn was very very severe in nature because that just reminds you that risk is there in each and every business. So just moving on to the second source of moat, that is taste. So taste, suppose if I talk about Maggie, right? Like, would you prefer a Maggie noodle packet or a top ramen or a top ramen noodle packet, right? So most of the preference would be for like most of the people would go for Maggie. So and even during my college time, so I've done my undergrad from North Campus in like North Campus in Delhi. So even over there, the trend was कि like चलो मैगी खाने चलते हैं, right? तो काफी बारी I've just observed like each and every student was like चलो यहाँ पे मैगी खाने चलते हैं, and there were so many Maggie joints, even though they were in a commoditized business, but जो जो मैगी नूडल्स की बात करते हैं, the taste is such that the customer remembers the taste. आज जो QSR बिजनेसेस की बात करते हैं, दिल्ली में अगर आप मैकडॉनल्ड्स का बर्गर खाते हो, and if you eat that burger in Mumbai, the taste would be exactly the same, right? Why is the taste same? Because again, the even the QSR business उसमें काफी चीजें वैसे और भी आती हैं, but if the taste is not standard, then your business will start failing, right? तो यहाँ पे दे लाइक मतलब मेरे घर की लोकेलिटी में एक लाइक फास्ट फूड जॉइंट खुला था एंड दे आल्सो स्टार्टेड एक्सपैंडिंग बट वेयर द बिजनेस फेल्ड वाज दैट दे कुडंट कीप द टेस्ट स्टैंडर्ड माने जो आप टेस्ट दिल्ली में खाओगे लाइक इफ सपोज इफ यू ईट दैट बर्गर इन पंजाबी बाग एंड सपोज इफ यू ईट द सेम बर्गर इन वसंत कुंज these are two places in Delhi the taste would be entirely different. So this is one of the reason why his business couldn't pick up because even in QSR business, the taste has to be standard. This is one of the secret source of success in QSR chains as well. There are also other host of reasons, but taste is another source of moat, right? Third is economies of scale. So just talk about Vinity Organics. So अगर हम ATBS की बात करते हैं, so this is one of the chemical which Vinity Organics makes. And in this chemical, they are like currently making ROC of more than 35-40% because यहाँ पे operating margin is really high. Ayush, actually my pen isn't working, so I'll be just annotating using the mouse itself. So यहाँ पे economies of scale में so
Yeah,
the
not an issue. If you want, even you can tell me, Abhimanyu can do annotations for you. Like if you want, like we just tell us. We'll be doing it for you also if you want. So
no
you
worries.
just concentrate on the presentation. Yeah.
Right. So even in Vinity Organics, this chemical by the name of ATBS, so they'll be making more than 40% operating margins over here. Now, what is very interesting to notice is कि इनका ATBS का जो patent है, right, that has expired, right? So they got the patent from I think so from NCL Pune, and that patent has expired. But in spite of that, they have built such economies of scale in that business that they're still the lowest cost producer. एंड इतनी हजार करोड़ की मार्केट में लाइक 800 हजार करोड़ की मार्केट में इफ यू हैव 70-75% मार्केट शेयर दैट जस्ट लीड्स टू दी लाइक दैट जस्ट पोर्ट्रेज की एंट्री बैरियर इतना बड़ा हो चुका है कि नो वन एल्स विल कम इन सो Vinity Organics is purely a monopoly over there and surprising to notice that the patent has expired but in spite of that economies of scale इतना है उस प्रोडक्ट के अंदर that they're still able to continue making like 35-40% plus operating margins. Fourth is regulatory based modes. So we can talk about an IRCTC, right? So IRCTC has a ticketing rights, तो bottling rights पे catering का भी है. So Indian Railways के लिए IRCTC has this regulatory advantage. So suppose if I talk about something like a very small company by the name of Poshak Chemicals. So Poshak is a chemical company owned by the Alembic Group. But again, Phosgene करके जो वो chemical बना रहे हैं उसके लिए जो रेगुलेटरी अप्रूवल है दैट इजंट गिवन सो इजीली सो अपार्ट फ्रॉम पोशाक ओनली अतुल लिमिटेड हैज दैट अप्रूवल राइट so again regulatory based modes so if you look at companies abroad so there is one company by the name of VeriSign. What's the name of the company? By the name of VeriSign. तो जो आप .com and .net का डोमेन नेम है सपोज इफ यू ओपन www.facebook.com so that .com domain name is owned by VeriSign. So again, that is the moat because they've been owning that domain name since 1999. तो वहां पे ये भी आ जाता है कि थोड़ा सा रिस्क ये है कि अगर इनको अप्रूवल इनका और आगे नहीं हुआ डोमेन नेम ओन करने का तो दैट इज द रिस्क इन द बिजनेस बट दे बीन ओनिंग दैट डोमेन नेम सिंस द लास्ट 20 years now. So that is a regulatory based moat. We make ROC of more than 50% because capital to business में कुछ invested है ही नहीं, right? So again, that is very advantageous. Source 5 is location based moat. Again, first I'll just talk about my personal experience that how I've observed this because these are mental models. If आपके आसपास there are businesses, there are a lot of businesses, and just observe businesses and try to apply these sources because see even on a very small scale, people can actually build these sources of moat. I've seen tremendously profitable businesses on a very small scale like just to give you an example like one of our like football grounds so a partner of mine is the one who's very active in that so I'm a very passive investor in that business so I just calculated the ROC so ROC was more than 80-85% in that line of business and one of the main advantages was location based because in this location in the place where I live it is very densely populated so यहाँ पे there is very less land availability so he could go and do the tie-ups with the school. So like full kudos to him. And that actually gave us this location-based advantage in one of the areas, in one of the grounds that we have, because there are not many schools around and there is no land around. So that just shows you how location based advantage can be very, very strong in nature. So one business that comes to my mind, which is listed in India, is by the name of Nesco. So Nesco has this land parcel in Goregaon, and they have this land parcel since 1950s or 60s, if I'm not wrong. That's a 70-acre land parcel. अब उसके पास एयरपोर्ट भी आ चुका है, अब उसके पास ट्रेन स्टेशन भी आ चुका है, एंड that just makes it a location based advantage. Bombay Exhibition Center is over there, and I think it is the largest exhibition center there in Bombay. Maybe शायद से रिलायंस का भी अब आ जाए तो वहां पे रिस्क हो सकता है, but last 10-20 years में it has been a location based advantage. It has given a 15-16% CAGR as well, right? So again, location based advantages are real, are very, very real in businesses. Sixth source is ownership of a proprietary asset. So I do not have an opinion on the corporate governance of this group, but Hindustan Zinc is the perfect example of the ownership of a proprietary asset. सो हिंदुस्तान जिंक ओन्स माइंस, मतलब जिंक की माइंस ऐसी ओन करता है जहां पे वर्ल्ड में इट इज द लोएस्ट कॉस्ट प्रोड्यूसिंग साइट इन द इंटायर वर्ल्ड, राइट? देयर कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोडक्शन इज 30-40% लोअर देन द अदर जिंक माइंस because they own a proprietary asset. I do not have an opinion on the corporate governance of this group, but this company definitely has a moat in terms of owning a proprietary asset. तो ये बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग चीज है. And ownership of a proprietary asset में again patents can be another one. So patents में maybe Laurus Labs is doing a lot of stuff on the patent side. So there are so many patents, like मैंने एक दो से ज़्यादा मैं पढ़ नहीं पाया था because there are close to 200 plus patents I think so. So again there are process efficiencies. तो उनसे सस्ता कुछ API और कोई बना नहीं सकता. So if you just look at their market share in last 10 years, they've gained a lot of market share in their key APIs. So that just shows you that there is some kind of technical know-how that is there with them. Seventh source is brand. So again, like since we are from North India, so like a part of my family also lives in Punjab, and so we keep frequenting Punjab, like we keep frequently going to Punjab, Chandigarh, and these belts. So one thing which is very, very common in the college students, so like suppose if I'm 25, 26 years old right now, so I've met a lot of college students who are 20, 21, 22. And one thing which I've observed, which is very, very common with them, is that these guys have this chasm of buying a Royal Enfield. Suppose if I give you a choice that whether you want to buy a Tata Nano or a Royal Enfield, so it just shows you that people would prefer a Royal Enfield over a Tata Nano. So this experiment I also did in my father's office. So like my father has a manufacturing setup, and I went there, and a couple of the top management people have bought Royal Enfields. So I just asked one of them just to experiment कि गाड़ी तो आपकी बाइक तो 1-1.5 लाख की आई है, सच आप टाटा नैनो ही ले लेते, वो भी लाइक 1.5 lakhs के आसपास की है. So his reaction was pretty surprising. He was like कि टाटा नैनो कोई गाड़ी होती है, like so at least रॉयल एनफील्ड चलाऊंगा अच्छा तो लगूंगा. So that just shows you that brand aspect is there in terms of that. So another business which is not listed in India is by the name of LV. So LV is a business that is listed abroad, and this business has been tremendous in creating wealth. Well, this is a very, very aspirational brand. So you're attacking the aspiration of the people. So again, brand can be a very, very strong source of moat. One more business that is listed in London is by the name of Burberry. So Burberry is also another brand-based moat because you're creating such exclusivity around the brand. Ki, suppose if someone is well off, so someone might end up buying these brands. So, matlab, I do not get it why people go into this, but it just attacks the aspiration of the people. That is what the explanation I have. So in economics, we call this Veblen goods. Veblen goods are the goods when you increase the prices, the demand actually ends up going up, right? So these are Veblen goods in economics, we call them. Eighth source of moat is network effects. And sadly, in India, we do not have many businesses which have network effects. So maybe apart from an India Mart, again, I haven't read the businesses very in depth. मैं बस आपको ऊपर से ही बता सकता हूँ, मतलब कुछ इसमें अभी clear नहीं हूँ मैं खुद भी. Maybe apart from an India Mart or Info Edge, Naukri.com, definitely there is. Not many businesses have network effects. There are platform companies, exchange businesses like IEX, MCX, CDSL. So something or less could be there, but not many businesses in India have network effects. Because why am I saying this? Because suppose if I talk about CAMS is the CAMS is the basically a platform type service for mutual funds, right? So it is interesting, but the volume growth in CAMS is not more than 7-8%. And when I compare this to businesses listed abroad like Shopify or a trade desk, their growth is like 100 150%. It's a different business, I know, but since it's also a platform, Shopify, like a D2C platform, that direct to consumer, just look at the volume growth is 100% like users are joining every month, every like in every 3 months. And the growth over there is just like something else. So if you track those companies and if you compare it with the Indian examples, you will just find that there are not many Indian companies who are experiencing network effects. So that is that. Maybe we get such businesses in future which get listed. Banks and financials, yes, they do thrive on network effects, but since it's a commodity business at the end of the day, so यहाँ पे I do believe that risk management is the core. Maybe I'll come to that later. But yes, network effects are there as well. But I'm just talking about platform effects because even banks ROE won't be more than 15, 16, 17%. If you look at these businesses which I'm talking about, ROCE would be more than 50, 60, 70%, right? Moreover, growth would be at 100% earnings growth. So that is the aspect. Ninth one is distribution is a very big source of moat in itself. So if you just like just to give you an example, like I was like traveling in Rajasthan and India Mart I haven't read, so really sorry, like cannot give an opinion as of now. So very difficult. Source 9 is distribution. So like I was roaming around in Rajasthan, so like I was there with my a group of friends. So in a very hinterland of Rajasthan एक village था, तो वहाँ पे एक like one of my friends उसकी चप्पल टूट गई थी. And they wanted to like उस पे अगर कुछ एल्फी या जो कुछ वो लगाते फेविकॉल टाइप. So in that hinterland of Rajasthan there wasn't even any electricity. I think this is 2 years old story. And there was a shop over there where you could find an Elfie by Pidilite. So this shows you that how deep the distribution they have. Even ITC has a very deep sources of distribution because FMCG businesses may you need to have very deep distribution. So this is again another source of moat. And last one is technical know-how. So in many businesses, in many chemical businesses, we have seen like suppose if I talk about a Naveen fluorine. So some of the products that they're making, no one else is making them in India. Suppose if I talk about SRF, when SRF has monopoly over some of the fluorine chemical-based products which no one else is making in India, because over the years they have developed such deep expertise in that line of chemicals that it is very difficult for someone else to come in and make those products, right? So these are the 10 sources of moats that are there which helps you protect the ROIC of the businesses. So I think just moving forward, right? Like, am I audible to all, right? Ayush, am I audible?
Yes, you're
Yes.
audible. You're audible, Ishmohit.
Okay, just proceeding. Right. So, if you haven't read this, then just please go and read this 2007 letter by Warren Buffett, because this is very interesting. Because here he talks about three kinds of businesses. So, first business he talks about a great businesses, like a great business. So he says that the great business is like a great savings account with very high interest rates to its holders, which pays a very high interest rate. So basically, I have a bank account जहाँ पे मेरे को 30% interest rate आ रहा है. So that would be a great business. So I'll go into the maths later as well. Second is a good business. Now I have a bank account जहाँ पे मेरे को rate of interest is 15 to 20%. Now the surprising thing is most of the businesses or most of the opportunities that you will find in India would be over here. Just a second, right? Would be over here. That is in good businesses. So like in this aspect. So some of the and then the third category is gruesome business. That is, a gruesome business pays very less interest to its holders, and it forces you to add more money at disappointing rates of return. Suppose now if I have a bank account that is just giving me 4 to 5% rate of interest, and suppose if I compare it with a like normal FD bank interest, अगर 7% मिलता है, तो I'm just getting 4 to 5% over here. So again, a gruesome business is not the one where you want to be. But sometimes these gruesome businesses turn into good and great businesses. Some people have this knack of like identifying such opportunities. But when the cycle goes in reverse, then again, since this is transient, they again come back falling down to gruesome business. So very important to realize कि if you are going into cyclical businesses, just remember on the downside you will end up losing your capital if you do not have the acumen. बिकॉज आपको पहले रिस्क सोच के चलना है. रिटर्न्स आर जस्ट लाइक सेकेंडरी. इफ यू कैनॉट आइडेंटिफाई द रिस्क, रिटर्न्स वुंट कम टू यू फॉर लॉन्ग. आज सबको लग रहा है लाइक मार्केट बढ़ रही है तो स्टॉक मार्केट इज इजी, बट आई थिंक इट इज सिंपल, नॉट येट इजी, बिकॉज you have to be very emotionally calm. Like you do not have to, like many people act on tips, बट टिप्स में एक्ट करने से प्रॉब्लम क्या है कि डाउन साइड पे यू जस्ट कैन नॉट फैथम द डाउन साइड कि व्हाट इज हैपनिंग ऑन द डाउन साइड. सो मे बी वील डिस्कस कि किस टाइप के बिजनेसेस हैं. सो वन इज अ ग्रूसम बिजनेस, वन इज अ गुड बिजनेस, एंड द थर्ड वन इज अ ग्रेट बिजनेस, राइट? So coming to a very important concept कि great, good और gruesome business में how is the maths that works behind them. So just before going to that, I'll just explain this, that what is the formula of return on invested capital. So यहाँ पे I think 2 or 3 formulas हैं which people use. So some people use profit after tax in the numerator divided by invested capital. Some people also use this NOPAT, that is net operating profit after taxes. Basically जो EBIT की बात करते हैं, earnings before interest and taxes, उसमें से if I just remove the tax, that gives me EBI, which is similar to NOPAT, that is your net operating profit after taxes. So some people use this to get an idea, but let's just understand this. What is the DuPont of this? Because I think if we just have these basic understandings, so becomes very easy, because you just have to be roughly right. मतलब precisely right होने में कोई फायदा नहीं है. You just have to be roughly right. So this is profit after tax margin, that is net profit margin, and this one is invested capital turnover. So there are two types of businesses, right? Just to give you an example, some businesses can earn like very high profit after tax margins, and there are some businesses which can which can make very high sales on their invested capital. माने 1 रुपए के इन्वेस्टेड कैपिटल पे मैं कितने रुपए की सेल कर रहा हूँ. सपोज इफ आई टॉक अबाउट समथिंग लाइक इन एपीएल अपोलो, तो एपीएल अपोलो में प्रॉफिट आफ्टर टैक्स मार्जिन वुड बी मोर देन 3.5%. But sales upon invested capital turnover would be very high, 3 4x or 5x के आसपास होगी. That would give it an ROIC of more than 13 14 15%. Because जहाँ पे margin low होता है, then you are playing a game of turnover, because you need to make more and more sales, right? And कुछ businesses में, suppose if I talk about these CRAMS manufacturers जो pharmaceuticals में है, so in pharmaceutical CRAMS manufacturers, the invested capital turnover would be more than 1x, 0.8, 1x के आसपास. But their margins would be something to die for. So suppose again coming to DB's labs, so maybe profit after tax margins would be somewhere between 25 to 26%. I haven't calculated it exactly, but maybe उसके आसपास होंगे. So that will just give it an ROIC of more than 20%. Suppose if you talk about Suven Pharmaceuticals, Suven Pharma maybe again this is the source and not this is the source, right? So Suven Pharma may again profit after tax margins would be more than 25%, and invested capital turnover would again, क्योंकि asset उनके fully depreciated थे, तो शायद से अब asset base बढ़ने वाला है, तो again ROIC would come between 20 to 25% के आसपास. Suppose if I talk about Balkrishna Industries, Balkrishna Industries has 0.8x invested capital turnover, but profit after tax margins would be north of 20%, which is maybe 20% के आसपास, 17 18% से ज़्यादा, which is very extraordinary for a tire manufacturing company, right? So just tells you that something special is happening in that business, right? And maybe tire businesses में that is the best listed company in the Indian universe, just in my opinion. right? So this is what DuPont is. So some people also call this demand side like moat. This one, some people call this demand side moat, and some people also call this supply side moat, right? So let me just tell you this, like APL Apollo की हम बात करते हैं, तो APL Apollo has this currently with them. So if you just study their moat, if you study the competitive advantages, it's entirely based on supply side. Yeah, I'm more efficient than my competitor, right? But if you look at the con calls, if you read the con calls, like if you just go through the annual reports, what he's talking about is introducing value added products. So whenever a management is talking about value added products, so they are basically saying that we want to increase our margins. So indirectly, if the margins go up in APL Apollo, and if the invested capital turnover remains the same, your ROIC, ROC will further expand. Or expansion तो अभी वैसे आने ही वाला है, अभी आप like people will observe, because invested capital has reduced. So working capital intensity उस business के अंदर कम होते जा रही है, because they have switched to cash and carry. तो उनके जो उधारी का पैसा है, like जो days outstanding कहते हैं, जो trade receivables, that have reduced. पहले 15-20 days का था, now they're switching to cash and carry model, 1 or 2 days of trade receivables max, and they are aiming to become negative working capital company. So our like corporate governance also evolves in such companies. So 2015 तक तो no one would have imagined like APL Apollo would become such a big group. But again, invested capital जब आपका वो घट रहा है denominator, and आपका PAT या no PAT same भी रहता है, then you will see an ROIC expansion. So indirectly that is happening in that business, and if the value added products get launched, so will be very very interesting going forward as well. And see, return on incremental invested capital is also very, very important. What is the direction of my ROIC? Maybe a sequence scientific we can talk about. So management guides for EBITDA expansion of 150 basis, 100 basis points every year. Very, very interesting such businesses, because incrementally जो मेरा capital लग रहा है उस पे I will be making higher returns. So, if you ask me, there is a 1:1 correlation between uh, returns on incremental invested capital and what the returns of your like what the returns you will be making as an investor. So that is pretty clear. Just coming to an example of great, good, and gruesome business, right? Just a suggestion: should I keep the language in English or Hindi, or both? Like if it works, like someone wrote, please keep it in.
Uh, I think you should, keep it in English, but use a little bit of Hindi in between. Because what happens is that the people who know Hindi, they may use know English, but the people who don't know Hindi, they may, matlab, you get my point, na? Ki,
Right, right, right.
yeah.
So
So try to keep Hindi, but use English as the common language of the presentation.
I think I'll just keep it in both, right? I think
Yeah,
mostly.
because Hindi is comfortable with this one guy and he's typing it again and again. But the thing is that Hindi may not be comfortable with everybody.
I think I'll just try to
Yeah,
explain important concepts in both.
yeah.
That will be better.
This one guy Ayush, he's very comfortable with Hindi, and आयुष जी, आई एम सॉरी, बट द थिंग इज कि बाकी लोगों को भी आना चाहिए ना हिंदी कंफर्टेबल, अगर
नहीं,
बाकी लोगों को, हाँ,
it is totally okay, sir. तो मैं
राइट,
दोनों में जो important concepts रहेंगे तो मैं दोनों में समझा दूंगा, कोई प्रॉब्लम
राइट,
नहीं.
राइट.
So right, coming to this part of great, good, and gruesome business. Ki what is a great business? What is a good business? And what is a gruesome business? So again, very very important. Suppose I'll just take you to one more example. ROIC calculator. I'll just attend that question at the end. And तो great business क्या है, तो एक एग्जांपल लेते हैं. Suppose you have 100 rupees of capital, आपका 100 रुपए का कैपिटल है, एंड अब उस बिजनेस में उस 100 रुपए के कैपिटल पे यू कैन मेक ROIC of 50%. ऑन दैट 100 rupees of capital you can make an ROIC of 50%, right? So this would be classified as a great business. I'll just show the calculation as well on the next page. Then there is a good business, right? uh, a good business में what is the thing that capital 100 rupees का and ROIC 20% का, so on 100 rupees you were making 20%, and this would be classified as a good business. And what I have personally found, most of the opportunities in India you will find over here, because great businesses already, some of them are valued to such levels that they've ended up becoming coffee cans, right? Which is a new term we are encountering in last 2 3 years. So those are there, but second are good businesses. तो यहाँ पे काफी opportunities आपको मिलेंगी, जो आपके जो good businesses हैं. So very very interesting. And third is gruesome business which makes ROIC of 10% या 10% से below. माने 100 रुपए पे आप 10 रुपीज या 10 रुपीज से कम कमा रहे हैं. So that makes it a gruesome business. So just coming to the calculation of all the three businesses, and there are some assumptions in the calculation जो मैं आपको पहले ही I think clear कर दूंगा. So over here. So let's just पहले एक बार ये great business देखते हैं, and then we look at good business, and then we look at a gruesome business. So coming to the great business first, right? Now suppose if I have 100 rupees of capital and मेरे को कोई कहता है कि आप इसको 50% ROIC पे इन्वेस्ट कर सकते हो. Suppose someone tells me that you can invest it at 50% ROIC, right? That this is the ROIC. And like suppose if I have an ROIC of 50%, and now I have to grow my earnings by 10%. Earning मेरे को 10% से grow करनी है by investing this capital, right? So I need to grow the earnings by 10% by investing 100 rupees. Now in this type of business, मेरे को कितना पैसा reinvest करना पड़ेगा to grow my earnings by 10%? So answer is clear that the earnings growth are is equal to my ROIC into reinvestment amount. So suppose on capital of 100 rupees, मेरे को 10 rupees से earning grow करनी है 10% से. So what I'll do is that I need to reinvest 20 rupees. Suppose if I reinvest 20 rupees at an ROIC of 50%, I will end up growing my earnings by 10 rupees, right? So after reinvesting 20 rupees, how much is the cash I'll be left with, right? I'll be left with 80 rupees of cash, which can be distributed to all my owners, right? To all my shareholders, to the business owners if they want to take the money out. So again, this is a great business because in spite of reinvesting, to grow by 10%, I just need to reinvest 20 rupees, right? So again, my earnings growth would be 10%, but cash left for owners would be 80 rupees. Now coming to the second example, that is of a good business. जो इंडिया में हमें काफी अपॉर्चुनिटीज मिलती हैं वो गुड बिजनेस में ही मिलती हैं. इसका भी रीजन है, उसके इसके रीजन के पीछे I'll come. So suppose if I have a capital of 100 rupees and I have an ROIC of I'll just come to that part, ROC ROIC difference. End में I'll take all the questions, don't worry. So ROIC is at 20%. So now if I have to grow my earnings by 10%, right? So how much would I need to reinvest? So in this type of business, just see the difference. पहले मेरा ROIC 50% था, अब मेरा ROIC 20% है. So earnings growth again would be ROIC into reinvestment amount. So over here, my reinvestment amount would be 50, right? So if I just multiply 50 by 20%, I get 10 rupees or 10%, right? So cash left to owners in such business would be how much? 50 rupees. तो नियरली कैश में 60% का डिफरेंस आ रहा है, राइट? अर्निंग्स ग्रोथ आई एम जस्ट अज्यूमिंग लाइक कि अगले साल अगर मेरे को इतने से अर्निंग्स ग्रो करनी है तो राइट. तो जस्ट लुक एट दिस, द डिफरेंस बिटवीन कि कैश लेफ्ट फॉर ओनर्स कितना आएगा. In this business, I'll be left with 50 rupees, and in this business, I'll be left with 80 rupees. So that just shows you that nearly there is a difference of 60% from 50 to 80. And some of the businesses that we find in India, which have very, very high ROICs and which can also keep growing their earnings, which is very important, they always trade at a very, very expensive valuation when compared to Nifty, right? Some people say कि ये businesses 30 की पी पे भी मिलते थे, but उस टाइम पे निफ्टी भी शायद से 14-15 की पी पे मिलता था एक टाइम पे. So some of these businesses inherently are worth more than Nifty, right? Because जो cash left for shareholders है, that is more, because Nifty में if I just look at the ROIC, ROC, I have the data, it is at 10% for the last entire decade. This is why our returns have been poor as well when compared to Nifty. Nifty has barely given a 8, 9, 10% CAGR. Maybe इस rally से बढ़ के आएगा. But Nifty returns have been very, very poor in last 10 years. Just ask people who were there in the markets from 2003 to 8, like they were spoiled for choice. But 2010 to 2020, it has been a very, very slow bull run in terms of Nifty, right? So because ROIC has been low of Nifty, and there are a whole bunch of reasons. So which I don't think I would prefer to go into. Just a second, I'm just coming to this. Now there is another category of business that is a gruesome business. Now just look at this. Now over here, I have 100 rupees of capital. My ROIC is 10%. I'll just give you my 5 bucket framework. Just be patient with me. Just give me 30 minutes, right? And यहाँ पे earnings growth have to be at 10%. So in a gruesome business, what you have to do is you will have to end up reinvesting the entire 100 rupees of capital that you had at 10% to grow the earnings at 10 rupees, right? So what is the cash left for shareholders? Can people also like participate and write in the comment section? Is business scanner, would anything be left for the shareholders if I have to grow at 10%? If my ROIC is at 10%, right? So answer is I'll be left with 0 rupees. This is most of your cyclical businesses. This is most of your businesses which are very, very asset heavy, and which do not have good margins. And again, gruesome businesses are also there in the Indian markets. But sometimes a funny thing happens when gruesome businesses turn into good or great businesses, right? So before I go to the 5 bucket framework, I just wanted to clarify this, that this is the maths behind a great, a good and a gruesome business. अब इसको हम DCF में भी सीख सकते हैं, but DCF में I think if I start explaining would take me, I don't know, like 40-50 minutes. So maybe I'll write a blog article on my website soon, right? So just coming to this, coming to the next slide. Now these are the 5 types of businesses which we generally find in India. So I think DCF is like doesn't maybe work, but you need to understand the concept, as we say. So maybe I'll just let you my opinion known at the end, right? So first is a great business with high earnings growth. So this is our bucket one. What I'm saying basically कि यहाँ पे ROIC is more than 25%, and moreover your earnings are growing at more than 14-15%, right? So this is our bucket one, that is great business with high earnings growth. So Asian Paints, a Pidilite, has been in this part for last maybe 10 years, 15 years. Pidilite I think last 15 years पहले तो debt by equity बहुत ज़्यादा था. But Asian Paints would be a part of this, a great business with very high earnings growth. So DV's Laboratories has again picked up the earnings growth. बीच में earnings growth slow हो गई थी. But again अभी 1500 crores का एक और capex आने वाला है. So just tells you कि 30-35% ROC पे if you're just reinvesting, and if the earnings growth are also high, so this would be our bucket one, right? Great business with high earnings growth. Second type of business that there is a great business with low earnings growth. So some of the cigarette companies that are listed abroad, so one exception has been VST Industries because margin expansion has played out wonderfully over there. But some of the cigarette businesses which are very, very great business, suppose ITC may if we talk about it, it's a great business, no doubt. 80-90% ROC, no one would let you earn in this world, right? But the earnings growth in these businesses are generally very, very low because if you have a very high ROIC, but you cannot grow the earnings more than 6-7%, so that would make I haven't read Godfrey Phillips, so it would be difficult for me to answer that without looking at the numbers. So great businesses with low earnings growth. So यहाँ पे there is one business by the name of Foseco India. So it has been the leader in steel foundry, but again problem has been it is the market leader over there, 75, 80, 85% market share. So just exhaustion in the runway for growth. Page Industries is one such business. Great business, but male undergarments, you're already the market leader. And Page Industries has been actually a business story of market share gain from 2008 till 2016, 2017. but now they cannot gain more market share, so they are going into more products. Because if I am already 40-50% of the market, how plausible would it for like would it be for me to keep growing at 20%, right? अगर मार्केट 6-7% पे ग्रो कर रही है, my growth level would obviously fall down to industry levels. Suppose if I talk about a Maruti Suzuki today, so people keep talking about auto industry. So auto industry में the lead indicator would be the volume growth of Maruti Suzuki, because it is already 50-51% of the entire market, right? So if I am the entire industry in myself, so my growth will obviously fall down to industry levels, right? So great business plus low earnings growth, page industries. And sometimes these businesses are good for like maintaining or beating the inflation, but if purchased at high valuations like page industries, these businesses become a value trap over a period of time. Hero Motocorp, in my opinion, has been this in last 7 to 8 years. And like most like two-wheeler category in India is very very well penetrated. Volume growth 4-5% से ज़्यादा की नहीं आती businesses में. So Bajaj Auto grew by going into going into exports, but Hero MotoCorp में volume growth has been barely 4-5-6%. And Maruti, I haven't looked at the ROIC, ROC businesses, ROIC, ROC, but I think it will be fourth bucket पे आऊँगा, तो I'll just clarify that aspect. So third bucket is your good business plus high earnings growth. So a good business plus high earnings growth, these are most of your chemical companies in last 7 to 8 years, right? Vinity Organics is the only one which was a great business with high earnings growth, because unka ROC has been always above 25-30%. But a typical chemical business would have an ROC in India of 20 to 22%, 15%. Alkylamines has also become a great business apparently, but I do not think that is sustainable. So alkyl, I'll just come to it. I was invested 2-3 years ago, so it is a very very good case study, like in my personal investing experience. So a good business with high earnings growth. And I'll just take the questions at the end. Really sorry, right? And a good business at high earnings growth. So most of the chemical businesses, banks. So banks are good businesses. Some are very 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 few banks. यहाँ पे ROA is above 1.8 1.9%. ROE जैसे 15-16% है HDFC बैंक में. But size of opportunity is such that you can keep redeploying incremental cash to grow your AUM or loan book by 20% reasonably. So banks में इसलिए डिविडेंड नहीं देते. So some people asked me after the banking webinar कि सर ये लोग डिविडेंड क्यों नहीं देते? Because बहुत कम डिविडेंड पे आउट क्यों है? Because they don't need to. They can just redeploy that money for further loan growth or further AUM growth, right? So third is good business with high earnings growth, and many opportunities you will find over here. Fourth is a good business with low/no earnings growth. CCL products would be a perfect example of bucket four. So I really like this business, but size of opportunity wise, problems are there, right? So 1% industry grows. CCL has grown fairly well. मतलब they have done tremendously well to grow the volumes in 2013-14 period जब वियतनाम में plant आया था. But after that, last 4-5 years में earnings growth have been really really slow. And see, new plant has also come for I think freeze dried coffee at Guntur, Andhra Pradesh. But how long can they keep gaining market share? That is a question worth asking, right? So already 10% market share है उनका, I think outstanding production of coffee में. So how long can they keep continuing to gain market share? That is something very important to look at. So CCL products is example of this. One business which people always tell me कि ऐसा नहीं है सर, आप गलत कह रहे हैं, is OCCL and Ambika Cotton. So Ambika Cotton has been a good business. I really love the management. Like I've been a shareholder before, so no worries about that. Maybe a cyclical uptick is coming over there as well. Tech as the prices बढ़े यहाँ के. But last 5 years, में no one can deny the fact that it has been a good business with no earnings growth, almost stagnant earnings growth. Almost entire capex it has been done for maintenance capex, right? So OCCL is also another one business. So Oriental carbon, like I don't know what is the fascination with this. So I do get these long emails ki, no, you are wrong on this, but I've been getting those mails for last 2 to 2.5 years. So it is just my opinion because I've been observing them. So OCCL again is a market leader in India. They tried to penetrate the Chinese market, but they had to exit because अगर switching cost आपके पास है तो दूसरे competitor के पास भी है, right? We're competing with someone, even they will have the switching cost. So it's a good business with low to no earnings growth, right? Maybe if the cycle turns, earnings growth aa jayengi, but very very difficult to create sustainable wealth in such businesses. But you cannot expect for a 8 or 9x kind of returns in a decade in such businesses. TCS in Infosys, so there have been recent tailwinds, cost cutting, everything is going on. But most of the IT industry is very, very mature. Some areas might be still like relatively undiscovered. तो शायद से अगर product mix change हो जाए तो something can happen. But it is relatively mature as compared to other sun rising industries. So यहाँ पे एक example मैं लेता हूँ आपके साथ. There is business by the name of Heikel. So Heikel had an ROC of 13, 14, 15%, but earnings growth wasn't there. So Heikel में people think operating leverage can play out, brownfield capex हो रहा है. But important thing to remember is that they're into crop protection, animal pharma, and third one like animal pharma CDMO they have, and third one is pharma CDMO. So for all the three businesses, you need to have separate regulatory compliances. So again, very very difficult to say कि whether suppose if I had a standalone pharma company, suppose if I talk about a Syngene, suppose Syngene का CRAMS business है. Suppose if I talk about DV's laboratories, just an example. So DV's labs and Heikel. So DV's labs का अगर हम example लेते हैं, PI Industries का लेते हैं. So PI Industries again has one line of business that is agrochemical CRAMS, and in that line of business they've had very very good earning PI in my opinion is a great business with high earnings growth. So they've had very very superior earnings growth, right? Compare this with a Heikel. You have three businesses, and qualitatively, just think about it. Management bandwidth also gets extended, concentrating on three businesses. So these differences always play a part. Matlab, qualitative and quantitative is what investing is about, and so that thing is there. So there have been no earnings growth in Heikel in last decade. That thing might change in next 3 to 4 years. Very difficult to say, but I do not find the management to be reliable at all because shareholders weren't informed that your plant is shut down for 3 months. Suppose if you're in business with me and you're my partner, and suppose if I shut down the plant, अगर मैं 3 महीने के लिए प्लांट को बंद कर देता हूँ, मैं आपको बताता भी नहीं 3 महीने मेरा प्लांट बनता है, आप एंड में आते हैं क्वार्टरली रिजल्ट में, आई जस्ट कम एंड टेल यू कि सर मेरा तो प्लांट ही बनता 3 महीने से, आपको पता नहीं था, रियली सॉरी बता नहीं पाया, राइट? सो आई डू नॉट फाइंड द मैनेजमेंट टू बी दैट हाई क्वालिटी. एंड फिफ्थ बिजनेस इज अ ग्रूसम बिजनेस जिसकी हमने बात करी थी, with low slash no with negative earnings growth. And surprising thing is that whenever these businesses change buckets, either you get re-rating or you get de-rating or you get high earnings growth or the nature of the business changes. So I have case studies जिसमें हम बात करेंगे changing buckets. So gruesome businesses like HEG or Graphite India would for 1 or 2 years in an entire decade turn into great business with high earnings growth. And one way to track this is to get a hold of the cycle. Just read the history of last 10 years and just read कि उस time पे क्या हुआ था cycle में, इस time पे क्या हो रहा है cycle, what are the common patterns that are playing out, whether the promoter has been buying stock or not. HEG में I think I remember promoter was buying very very heavily and China का भी news काफी आ रहा था. So this is this, but remember, just like in Mahabharat, you'll be like Arjuna if you do not know how to exit. So maybe in cyclicals, you need to have a very set criteria of exit in mind. Ki if I get a 2, 3x, I'll exit. Some people use technical analysis for exit points, so that can also work. And like I do not use technical analysis. I'm just a fundamental guy as of now. So price, volume, action, everything I've been learning. So technical analysis a lot of people use to get out of cyclical businesses at the right time, but it's very difficult to time such businesses. If you do not have an acumen, stay out. No point of going into cyclical businesses at market tops and then exiting with 70% price drops, right? Rain industries, I remember some people cloned a very famous investor and got in at 400 rupees, right? Now, if you do not have the understanding of the nature of the business, it will be gone, right? Larsen and Tubo in Infotech, I haven't read yet, very honest, because there's so many businesses, so doing a deep dive on one takes us 30-40 hours, maybe sometimes more. So uh, there it is there in my bucket list to read. So again, Eris Life Sciences I haven't read, so I'll let you know. I have how to decide. I'll come to all that, right? So these are your five buckets, and important to remember that businesses keep changing these buckets, right? So first bucket, and one differentiation which I want to remember, which I want you to be the key takeaway from the entire presentation. Kaplan Point Labs I won't touch because there are some corporate governance issues. अब subsidiaries को आप track नहीं कर सकते, and some kind of issues like which maybe I'll discuss later. So अभी I do not want to talk about that maybe. So one is reinvestment mode, and second is legacy mode, right? So what is reinvestment mode? Reinvestment is कि आपके पास incremental capital आ रहा है. Suppose आज मेरे पास 100 rupees of capital है, उसको invest करके मैंने 20 rupees कमाए. So the 20 rupees which I'm getting incrementally, I can even reinvest that 20 rupees at 20%. So this will be a reinvestment mode because I have huge size of opportunity, right? So this is the reinvestment mode. Legacy mode would be your bucket two. So reinvestment mode में I'm taking high ROIC plus high earnings growth. एंड लेगेसी मोड में व्हाट आई बी टेकिंग इज बकेट टू सपोज. तो यहाँ पे आई थिंक आर ओ सी लिखा हुआ है, बट आर ओ आई सी वी कैन यूज, और आर ओ सी एज वेल. So over here you have low to no earnings growth because this is a legacy business. So this business has a legacy mode. So your refractory players, some of the times these businesses already, if you have 50, 60, 70% market share, so your growth inevitably ends up being tied with the market growth, right? So high ROC, Orient Refractories, very high ROC. If I remove the cash, more than 80, 70, 80% asset light business. But again, domestically, market leaders, very difficult to gain further market share. Something might interesting might happen when like R, if I'm not wrong, RHI Magnus Sita, if they use Orient Refractory and India as a low cost base for exporting all over the world, इस वजह से वो भी कर रहे हैं merger. And a venue supermart would be a part of bucket four, that is of like this, sorry, bucket three, that is of good ROE plus good earnings growth, good ROC. Size of opportunity काफी ज्यादा है वहाँ पे. And IEX again, we'll just come to that. अब यहाँ पे I'll just make a very very clear differentiation at the end. Just give me a second. I'm just like drinking water. Really sorry. Right. So legacy mode plus legacy mode plus limited size of opportunity. And I'll just come to all the buckets at the end. So at the fifth presentation, we have that. Third bucket is your good ROC plus good ROIC plus high earnings growth. So over here, most of your chemical businesses, your CRAMS manufacturers, some of them would fall in bucket one, some of them would also be part of bucket three. So over here, there's a reinvestment opportunity plus large size of opportunity. Financials are a part of bucket three. So HDFC Bank आज भी 8-9% market share है. But problem banking में, see, I'm just telling you the downside as well, because downside should be known, that when you grow too big in banking, you become systematically fragile. Something or the other will keep blowing up. Like in Wells Fargo case, so in even in Wells Fargo case, there was a fraud of opening new accounts. Because you become so big कि क्या चल रहा है, नॉट इवन उदय कोटक नोज कि आज उसके बैंक में कहीं पे कोई एम्प्लॉय कुछ गलत तो नहीं कर रहा. बिकॉज यू बिकम सो बिग इन साइज. सो ये एक डाउन साइड हो जाता है ऐसे बिजनेसेस में कभी कभी. तो एच डी एफ सी बैंक पे आई थिंक IT, abhi RBI there has been an adverse action. So maybe they will come out of it. But just to tell you, कि systematically, some of these businesses are fragile as well. Insurance, I haven't read, but size of opportunity even in insurance remains huge, right? So, like I have the numbers. I've made a small presentation. Maybe I can share after the like, webinar. So over there as well, there is good opportunity. Financials, mein, I think financial services, the entire thing is over there, and good ROC plus high earnings growth. Mein, again, one would be your chemical businesses. Aarti Industries is one such business. Atul Limited has been one such business. Deepak Nitrite, actually, what happened in last 1 or 2 years, from bucket 3, Deepak Nitrite went to bucket 1 due to a cyclical uptick in performance products. Because China में shut down हो गया था OBA का. If you haven't seen it, you can just watch the video that we have posted today. So businesses also keep changing buckets. So bucket 4 is good ROIC plus low to no earnings growth. So when we bought into alkyl amines, so between 2014 to 17, it was a legacy mode. There were low to no earnings growth. It was a legacy mode with limited size of opportunity. तो शायद से नहीं था उस टाइम पे हमें लग रहा था कि cyclical downturn है. But volumes फिर भी grow कर रही थी 6-7% पे. Because earnings growth were very slow. At that time, it was a part of bucket 4. But when earnings picked up, when a new greenfield capex was announced at the age of methylamines, so when the industry also picked up and when earnings picked up, alkyl first went from bucket 4 to bucket 3, and now when acetonitrile के जो prices and data went through the moon, it has become a part of bucket 1. इस बार अगर आप annual report में देखोगे, they just declared that they've been making an ROIC of more than 40-50%. I think it is there in the annual report. So, which is not sustainable in my view. So, us pe I'll just come. And last is your gruesome ROIC plus high ROIC with low to no earnings growth. And sometimes these become reinvestment businesses or reinvestment modes. Sometimes they turn into high ROIC businesses. So वैसे तो ये businesses बेकार हैं, but कभी कभी क्या होता है एक छोटे time period में sometimes what happens that these businesses become very high ROIC businesses. So example HEG Graphite India, some of the other cyclicals that you have. So these are a part of bucket 5. So as a textile sector would go into like high ROIC, high ROC, maybe if something happens. So very interesting here. So this is the bucket 5, and these are your 5 buckets. So these are the five buckets. Again, just discussing. First is your high ROIC plus high earnings growth. Second is your high ROC, high RO like with low to no earnings growth. Third is your good ROC plus high earnings growth. Fourth is your good ROIC with low to no earnings growth. And last is your gruesome ROIC, which sometimes changes into high ROC and which sometimes steel business would be here. Tata Steel, JSW sub, it will be a part of bucket 5. Because again, it's a cyclical sector. Profitability is dependent upon commodity prices. Most of the commodity business would be a part of this bucket 5, right? Look at the long term stock chart of Tata Steel. अगर आप 10 साल लेके बैठ जाते हैं तो पैसा ना बनता. You need to keep timing in such businesses bucket 5 वाले. So you need to be very clear कि at which part of the cycle I'm stepping into. Otherwise, if you end up losing your capital, so there is no joy in investing, right? So that is clear. Just coming to 2 more presentations and then we just go into case studies. So this is what the cycle of investing is according to like our opinion, how our framework works. So first we'll analyze the business, right? Then we look for few variant perception thesis pointers. जो next page पे we'll discuss. Third is people. What people also do is I haven't done this personally that much. People look for price volume action charts. People also look for stocks breaking out of long term consolidations. And what is this telling us? That some part of your thesis is playing out. That is price volume action or like using technical analysis. And last is that finally starts reflecting into numbers. That is fundamentals. This is cycle of investing in our opinion. Some people say that technical analysis comes first, but in our opinion business analysis comes first because stock is nothing but a piece of business. Technical analysis can help in terms of getting into the at the right times that some of your thesis pointers are playing out, But again, this is how the cycle works. And without business understanding, so if you're using technical analysis, you're a trader, you're not an investor, which is totally fine. Which I have friends who have made money out of trading. I have friends who have made a lot of money out of investing. So just to tell you, बात करते हैं chemical companies की आज लोग कर रहे हैं बात. So a friend of mine, his grandfather is a chemical engineer. He's been owning Atul, Aarti, Alkyl Mines, Balaji Mines, and some one or two more chemical companies. I don't remember for last 13 years now, right? And just funny because the dividends which they get now is enough to meet their expenses. So importance of circle of competence. So again, he's been invested for last 12, 13 years. So interesting things, right? Because he told, like, I had a conversation with his grandfather. So he was like, बेटे देख मेरे को इससे ज्यादा और कुछ समझ नहीं आया जिंदगी में, एंड इसी में मेरे को इन्वेस्ट करना था. And he's been also holding Pidilite as well. So it's a story which, like, if someone if whenever I'm assessing a stock, so his story always comes to my mind of circle of competence ki how much money you can create if you're just patient and if you just understand things in those sectors. So very very interesting, right? So variant perception. So one is product mix change. And sometimes businesses में what ends up happening is your product mix changes. So CCL products में freeze dried capacity के बाद क्या होएगा कि they are getting into higher margin coffee business. So product mix change, right? So in some businesses this does happen, like product mix changes over a period of time. Second is industry cycle. So Balkrishna Industries is a shallow cyclical business. It's not a completely cyclical business, and it has elements of shallow cyclicality. So since abhi bhi 50-60% of the volume is dependent on agri tires, so it is tied to the cyclicality of the agriculture in general in the world, food prices, commodity prices, the patterns of weather, right? So it's a shallow cyclical business, but important to remember that buying such shallow cyclical structural stories at downturn can be immensely profitable in the upturns, right? And this is how long-term compounding also plays out. So industry cycle, one needs to be aware of it. So just to give you an example, do a homework. Like all of the participants can do this homework. Read Naveen Fluorine, SRF, PI Industries, all three con calls from 2016 to 2018. You'll get an idea about the shallow cyclicality element I'm talking about. All three managements will say that currently the global agrochemical industry is going through a phase of mergers and acquisition, and moreover, abhi like there has been inventory destocking, and thirdly, is time पे we are going through a downturn. So एग्रोकेमिकल इंडस्ट्री में भी हर 10 साल में 3 साल ऐसे आते ही आते हैं जहाँ पे ये सिनेरियो प्ले आउट करता है. So just read the three con calls, like all three companies between 2016 to 2018 would be a very good case study for you to get a hang of industry cycles. Third is your margin expansion. So like IT businesses may they've gone into cost cutting. Some businesses change their product mix so much that the margins start expanding, right? अगर suppose just to give you an example, अगर Deepak Nitrite में the fine and specialty division becomes a bigger part of the business, so margins will structurally improve because over there margins are a lot higher. Aztec Life Sciences, some people have been asking. So Aztec Life Sciences has given a guidance of 50% CRAMS business, 50% their technical grade manufacturing. So CRAMS they guide for 25% EBITDA margins. So what could be your thesis? Product mix change, and what will happen? Margin expansion. And if margin expands, product mix changes, automatically your ROC, ROIC will start expanding, right? So Aztec thesis is pretty clear. Sequent I'm currently studying right now. So there was a very very good webinar. I haven't seen it fully. 10-20 minutes का ही देख पाया था. But again, seems very very interesting by prime facing. So these are your thesis pointers which plays out. So some people get into businesses when the capex has actually played out. So capex risk nahi hai. So this is just waiting for operating leverage to play out. So operating leverage, even your wildest of imagination gets destroyed in terms of growth in right in operating leverage. So one is your corporate actions. And corporate actions may companies go through demerger. I'll just discuss. Then capex can be a thesis pointer. Ki I'm investing in this company because they've announced a massive capex. One is your deleveraging. Now, one business which can be a story of deleveraging, but very, very difficult to get a hang of it is this. Two businesses I'll talk about, SH Kelkar, and second one is this one, Sangvi Movers, right? Sangvi Movers is a completely cyclical business, right? And maybe they're deleveraging very, very aggressively. Promoter has also recently bought stock, so they are trying to deleverage, and sometimes deleveraging can also be a thesis for like for investing for some people. And apart from deleveraging, SH Kelkar, they've done the acquisition. So management is saying, "Ki, now we will focus on deleveraging. Now we use the cash flow to pay down our debt. So more capex would come. So if deleveraging starts happening again, your interest cost goes down, and your return ratios start expanding after a period of time. This can be a thesis pointer which a lot of people use. One is cost reduction, which is something like backward integration. Some people go into backward integration, like Balakrishna Industries the case where they've done a backward integration for carbon black. Just led to 150 to 200 basis points expansion in EBITDA margin. So again, cost reduction में तो वैसे just to tell you in terms of backward integration, most of these CRAMS players have to go into backward integration, or most of the technical grade manufacturers like Aztec or Bharat Rasayan would have to go into backward integration, because no MNC would give you contracts if in agrochemicals, especially if you're very, very dependent on China in terms of raw material, because they are trying to leave China plus one की बात हो रही है. So they won't entirely leave China. So they just want to de-risk their supply chain. So PI has de-risked its supply chain from 35% Chinese dependent to 7 to 8% now, which they're further trying to bring down. So again, this will happen in a lot of businesses, backward integration. Aztec has done backward integration in 2018, 2019. They set up two plants, right? And last is your management change, which is very easy to say कि अच्छा हो जाएगा, but very, very difficult to identify. Dr. Reddy's, Britannia, two businesses where management changed, and which has worked out wonderfully. Tata Consumer is another business जहाँ पे restructuring activities हो रही है, management जब से change हुई है. So again, this could be a part of the thesis. And management change is maybe in our scenarios, it's a little tricky to be right on, because as outside shareholders, if we just read the interviews of the management, so we need to get a very concrete hang on the commentary ki what we are trying to do. So in Dr. Reddy's, Britannia Industries, this has played out wonderfully. In Tata Consumer, it is playing out. It has also played out in this business, packaging business. I'm forgetting SL Propack, right? When the PE fund came in, so interesting to notice when the management changes, right? Sequent mein there's been a management change. Carlyle Group has come in, right? So interesting things. So first case study, maybe Ayush, I'll take just two or three case studies, and I think I'll just share the rest of the presentation. just
Yeah, definitely. Whatever you feel. So you can take. I think Loris. You can take EU Finance, or you take according to your. What you feel. You take according to that.
I think I'll just proceed with Gujarat Ambuja Exports. So
Okay.
in 2019, what happened was, but see, Gujarat Ambuja Exports, in my opinion, is not a very strong entry barrier business, right? And over here the moat isn't that wide. It's a very, very narrow moat, because supply side where most of the competition is not only interested in this business. So there's a Rocket from France which is not very interested. There's a Cargill India which is not interested in this line of business. Their utilization levels are at 20-30%. So Gujarat Ambuja Exports, what happened was in 2019, maize prices shot up from 15 rupees to 25 rupees per kilo, right? So they enter into fixed contracts. So by entering into fixed contracts, what happens was कि अब जब ये मेज प्रोक्योर करने गए, तो अकॉर्डिंग टू देम उस टाइम पे जो मेज का प्राइस था, तो उसके हिसाब से 15-16 रुपए पर किलो का था. but that increased to 24 to 25 rupees per kilo. Since they were entering into fixed contracts, your margins contracted. You went through a severe margin contraction, right? So what happened after margin contraction was ROCE fell, and moreover, your profits declined. And but interesting thing was that since they had the balance sheet strength, nearly 10% of the industry collapsed after this. Nearly 10% of the industry supply collapsed. Industry supply shut down. And you are basically again positioning yourself for luck if you get into such businesses. So maybe we got into this business at book value, below book value. I think pre-merger 120 rupees ki book value thi. So 110, 115 was our like what we got into it. And we just placed ourselves for luck कि कभी ना कभी तो maize के prices ठीक होंगे ही. So what ended up happening was that competitive intensity lessened, right? Second thing that ended up happening was companies like Dhanuka Agritech introduced pesticides for countering fall armyworm. So fall armyworm was the main culprit behind the margin contraction, मतलब maize prices बढ़ने पे. So they launched products like by the name of Zapac and all. So जिससे fall armyworm was being controlled. And secondly, one interesting thing that happened was कि the acreage माने जो maize जितना plant होता है, क्योंकि maize prices इतने फायदेमंद हो गए थे, farmers increased the maize plantation, and next year suddenly we had a bumper crop. And this was again, you position yourself for luck in such businesses. So from bucket 5, again this business went into bucket 5 when your ROC contracted. So from bucket 5, when this cycle played out, this business again became a part of bucket 3, right? And this is not a very deeply moated business. Matlab, for me it's a partly commoditized business only, because the other two segments are not interesting, but यहाँ पे incremental capital जा रहे हैं. So again, from bucket 5 to bucket 3, and as a result, I think from book value it has nearly doubled. Maybe I haven't checked the price. I think stock भी split हुआ था बीच में. So 120 rupees after split, the stock price has come, right? So you just position yourself for luck once you start understanding cycles. And your exit strategy has to be very clear in such businesses. Some people have this exit strategy after 1.5 or 2x we will exit the business. Some people have used technical analysis, and some people will have this exit strategy of so bucket 3 is basically of like ROIC ROC of more than 15-16% जो base business में, and earnings growth over here could be potentially at जो margin expansion play out करी है has been at 15-20% more than that, right? So last 2-3 quarters में you'll see that has happened. So this is the first case study that such patterns keep playing out in the markets, right? Second case study, I think personally this has been, I think this would be our best performing stock in last 2 to 3 years. And not a recommendation because such prices are out of whack. Now, पहले लोग didn't want to look at amines industry. 10-11 की PE पे you are getting duopoly. Now people think it's a coffee can business. So again, a little tricky. So again, alkyl amines. So alkyl amines operates in the amines industry, which is a duopoly. And the only other comparable competitor is Balaji amines. So amines are an annuity product which are used over and over again in production of bulk drugs, API, agrochemicals. And they constitute only 5 to 10% of the entire cost. And it is very like corrosive to transport. So यहाँ पे methyl amines especially are very corrosive to transport. Methyl amines transport नहीं होती, import नहीं होती, and there are ethyl amines as well. So there are many different kinds of amines. Ethylene amines भी आती हैं, fatty amines भी आते हैं, but alkyl amines operates in aliphatic amines division. And from 2014 to 17, alkyl amine went through capacity constraint, right? There were severe capacity constraints which the management was going through. And moreover, secondly, industry wide pharma industry was going through trouble because 60% of the end usage happens in pharma industry. So over here, a capex of more than 200 crores, I think 240 crores capex was announced for methylamines and acetonitrile. So what you were getting at that time was, since see in market environment also plays a part, at 2017 there was a big crash in mid caps. So you were getting a capable management with low valuations, with capex trigger coming, with favorable industry structure. This was the perfect recipe, right? And luck that played out was acetonitrile. Think if I remember correctly, Pat was at 90 or 100 crores at like when like once we were there, and I had this estimate कि शायद से Pat इसका 200-250 crore हो जाएगा maybe after 4 or 5 years. So 250, 230 odd crores of PAT estimate was 4 to 5 years down the line because management gave a guidance in the AGM that we want to achieve 2000 crore revenue in next 4 years. But luck क्या हुआ? Acetonitrile prices started rising, which is one of the chemicals that they make, and prices rose from 120 rupees per kilo to 270 to 280 rupees per kilo. So luck played out in that aspect, and stock massively re-rated from 11 times earnings to close to 37 times now. And currently, I do not have an opinion on alkyl because यहाँ से अगर acetonitrile prices correct होते हैं, I'll just tell you as a disclosure, I've already sold the stock. So यहाँ से अगर acetonitrile prices correct होते हैं, so margin expansion could be very very severe because EBITDA margin in this business long term has been 20 to 22%. आज 30-31% हो रखे हैं. तो अगर आप 2018-17 की कॉन कॉल्स पढ़ेंगे, मैनेजमेंट कीप सेइंग कि लॉन्ग टर्म मार्जिन्स वुड बी एट 21-22%. If reversion to mean happens, you get a severe correction in spite of all the capex, right? तो हो सकता है कि यहाँ पे प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी लेवल यहाँ से शायद से ग्रो कर जाए. Acetonitrile prices, I think I used to check from HDFC Securities report जो हर 3 महीने में, so they track the stock, so उनकी वेबसाइट पे आता है, I think reports आती हैं, and तो you can check from that. Second, alternatively what you can do is कि Indian Oil का I think application थी जिसमें acetonitrile prices आते हैं. तो I think I'll just share that as well. But I used to track from HDFC Securities report. तो हर 3 महीने में they just come up with a result update, and HDFC Securities report is free, totally free on the website. And again, this thing has happened. Indirectly, they are having an advantage from China. And indirectly कैसे? Because they supply to API companies, so API companies are benefiting, तो इनका भी volume growth बढ़ रहा है, right? This time quarter में there was 18% volume growth and 6% value growth. तो 24% total top line growth थी because 18% volume हुआ था and 6% value था. So again, indirectly they benefit since it's a B2B business. Balaji Mines is good, but Balaji Mines, I didn't invest in Balaji over alkyl. Reason was poor capital allocation, and Balaji Mines has applied for anti-dumping in DMF or whatsoever. But if you go read the con calls of previous years, I did this study on both the companies. When they were setting up the DMF capacity, they were so bullish that this thing will happen, that thing will happen. Now look at the execution. 20% utilization. China has done dumping in DMF, and you just cannot do anything because it's the choice of your product. Alkyl had this choice of getting into DMF. Promoter clearly says we do not want to get into such products where we have to rely on such things. So alkyl amines from a good ROC business of 15, 16, 17%, right? With no earnings growth, that was bucket 4, turned into what? I think I'll just remove this, right? So from bucket 4, it went to bucket 3. From good ROC of 15, 16, 17%, earnings growth nahi thi us time pe, your earnings growth picked up, right? So how to check these triggers of bucket changing? So you have to look for that variant perception box that we have. And these are the triggers that keep playing out. So from bucket 4, it went to bucket 3, right? This is what happened in alkylamines case. And next, coming to so see auto cycle acetonitrile dynamics. I think I'll just entertain that question separately. Just give me one more case study, right? Next, I'm just coming to Lawless Labs. So again, as a disclosure, we own this business, and this is not a recommendation to buy. So this is again a personal case study. So from 2015, they were like incurring a lot of capex. So ये FDF business में जा रहे थे, and what happened was due to regulatory inspections, due to checks and like everything. So one thing important to study in such businesses is ki what led to this outcome and what can be the pattern recognition I can apply to other businesses as well. because यहाँ पे nearly 50% of your gross block wasn't generating any revenues, because you were going through a capex, greenfield capex, you were going through regulatory inspections, you were launching products, you were going through product validation processes. ये सब 3-4 साल का process तो है ही है. So you look at this con call snippets, right? So in Lawrence Labs Q4 FY18 con call extract, if you look at our gross block of 2000 crores of revenue with an asset turnover 1:1, but more than 40% of our assets are not yielding any revenue. Maybe in next 2 financial years, it will be fully utilized, right? This is Q1 FY19. Around 600 crores of asset is not generating any revenue. This includes our formulation unit 4, unit 6, and even unit 5, because we are not generating any commercial supplies. Once we start generating revenues out of these units, then ROA, ROC will automatically improve, right? So thesis was pretty clear that this has happened in the business, and again, so this was there in this story. It was basically an operating leverage time bomb, and by getting into formulation business, they just forward integrated by using their API capabilities. So margins were higher in this business, and they also ended up diversifying the revenue stream. Those are not a, this was a one product company, that is EFV API. Now, if you look fast forward, what has happened is just check this. Fast forward to today, like 2009, this was a one product company. Just imagine. Fast forward to today, 36% of the business comes from generic FDF, that is your formulation business. 10% comes from custom synthesis. Then there are other APIs. Other APIs, maybe one thing interesting is that they like supply to a lot of like companies. Even in like formulation business, they do contract manufacturing. So that is also interesting. Then there is oncology API, that is 5%, and then there are antiviral APIs, which is their legacy business. So very interesting to notice. And अब जो capex और 1200 करोड़ का आ रहा है, तो उसमें भी again FDF के अंदर काफी like expansion हो रहा है. I think from, if I'm not wrong, 5 billion tablet capacity to 9 billion tablet capacity. And जो इन्होंने acquisition करा भी Rich Core का, that is very interesting, because if you look at companies like Beyond Meat, right? You can just write these names. Beyond Meat, right? Second name is Beyond Meat के अलावा there is Christian Hansen, there is Novozymes, and you check how high an entry barrier businesses these are, and it's like again a CDMO for food industry, and a CDMO for enzymes, and a CDMO for biologics they're establishing. तो बायोसिमिलर्स में अभी इनका कोई प्लान नहीं है आने का, जो बायोकॉन कर रहे हैं. बट अगेन a very interesting acquisition, because margins over there, gross margins are more than 70%. If you look at Christian Hansen financials, just write this name if you want to, Christian Hansen. So in a in it is listed in Europe. So in that part of the world, it has given a 5x in last 10 years. So again, यहाँ पे अगर हम इनका ROC देखें, it has increased from 14% to 32%, because it was an operating leverage time bomb, as we discussed, because 50% तो gross block आप revenues earn ही नहीं कर पा रहे थे, right? So very interesting things. So thesis pointers over here were again product mix change, because you are forward integrating. Then अब brownfield capex में आ रहे हैं, जो इसमें से I think 700 crores का some part of the capex would be in brownfield. Then there is non-linear business growth in CRAMS, right? So CRAMS business ही इनका 1000-1500 crore का हो सकता है, I think so next 3-4 years. अगर biologics का भी आ जाए तो साथ can grow faster. Then market share they have captured in a lot of APIs. Then it is the lowest cost producer in ARV APIs. You cannot gain market share without being the lowest cost producer. So I had this conversation with Dr. Puneet Bansal. So I think he provided a lot of fascinating insights into their process capabilities, and just proves it. Like he's a domain expert basically. वो doctor है, he's a PhD, and he's in UAE right now. So he has domain expertise. He has done the like patent level process studies. So I haven't done this because I'm not a pharmacist or something, but it's just very interesting. And if the revenues from regulated markets increase of formulation, so for regulated markets में formulation का margin higher है. So this can also be another thesis pointer. So किसी ने पूछा ये results के बाद correct क्या हुआ? I do not have an opinion कि why did that happen? Because sometimes a lot of things get baked into the results itself. Some people will say कि free cash flow नहीं आया. Some people will say कि inventory ज़्यादा आ गई. So these things are a part of life. So I don't think we can read too much into it, right? So Suven Pharma Beach, I think so it came down to 290 levels after the result, and I think again it is back up because business nature ही इतना lumpy है कि एक क्वार्टर में 100% ग्रोथ आ जाएगी और एक क्वार्टर में डी ग्रोथ आ जाएगी 20-30% की. तो ईयर ऑन ईयर व्यू करोगे बिजनेस अंडरस्टैंडिंग है तो अगेन gives you a lot of conviction to hold, right? So I think again from bucket four, it went to bucket one with very high ROIC with high earnings growth. So Loris currently has more than 30% ROC and ROIC would also be more than 20-25%. So it's a part of bucket one currently, and they are also reinvesting further 1200 crores, and size of opportunity is still there. So Cram's business may, if the rich core acquisition plays out the way I am seeing it, so another lever of growth has been just unlocked for Loris Labs. So maybe, so if you guys want me to on this Wednesday, should I release a report on the Loris Labs, like the acquisition on Rich Code? Right? Pledge is I've discussed in the video. You can watch the YouTube video. तो उसमें मैंने risk की भी सारी बात करी है. सब कुछ discuss करा है. What are the risks in this business? What are the like upsides in the business? Everything I've discussed. Right? So this is what has happened. AU, I can just briefly touch. I'm just feeling a little tired. I've just recovered from COVID. So
Yeah, so no, that is the reason I wanted to interrupt you, Ishmohit, also because you've just recovered from COVID. Cold. So, what I would suggest now is you take a 5 minutes break. I've just WhatsApped you a message. Just see if you can get that. Just a second. Yeah.
just give me just 2 minutes break.
Yeah. Guys, Abhimanyu will brief you about finvents platform again. So, Abhimanyu, I'm making you the presenter. So, I'm making you the presenter, Abhimanyu. Abhimanyu, are you there? Yeah, he's there. So, okay, I'm making you the presenter. Just give me give Mohit and me 5 minutes time, and
Sure,
then
sure. You
we'll.
guys can take the 5 minutes.
Yeah, then
So,
we'll
guys,
proceed to the Q.
we are just going to be taking a 5 minutes as Ishmohit is just taking a 5 minutes break. Then I think after that we can continue with the Q&A session and then we can end the meeting. So till then, I think I'll just take 5 minutes of your time for the people who are not joined in the start. For the people who are attending this event for the first time, I just want to tell you that we do this very regularly. By we, I mean that the name of our firm is known as Finvents Network Private Limited. As I told you, this is our firm name. So what we are trying to achieve here is that we conduct these type of webinars quite regularly, and we are planning to conduct more than 36 paid webinars and at least 12 free events in during the year of 2021. So right now, as you saw, we have conducted this event with Ishmohit. We have more speakers. We have associated ourselves with about 24 speakers. So I would like you to go through some of the speakers which we have shown over here. This is our current speaker list. We have Vivek Mashrani, Arpit Bhargav, Srinivasan G, Rishikesh Kale, Pankaj Singhal, Nuresh Virani, Meet Shah, Lalit Kumar Rathi, Ishmohit Arora, Avinash Kurashakkar, Gurjeev Anand, Gagandeep. Then we have Sanjay Kumar, Avik Mitra, Ankit Kanodia, Abhishek Murarka, Suchi Nahar, Debashri Chatterjee, Ayush Agarwal, Kumar Saurabh, Soumya Varani, Neil Bahar, Ashwin Bajaj, and Ayush Agarwal. So this is our speaker list as of now. This in the future we may associate ourselves with more speakers. All or this speaker list might have some updates in it. But basically, these speakers will be coming on our platform and they will be speaking on various topics. Like Ishmohit today has covered his valuation bucket list. In the future, some other speaker might be talking about some other stock, or they might be talking about certain companies or sectors. We have completely left it on the speaker's will, whatever he wants to discuss, but they have never seemed to disappoint us. And also, other than this, this 36 paid webinars which we are going to be conducting during the year of 2021, we are currently giving it as a club offer to all, because the cost for each and every single event during the year of 2021 is going to be 150 rupees for each event. So right now we are giving the all the 36 event as a club offer, and the cost for the club offer is only rupees 3000. Now,
Uh,
to be very honest,
Abhimanyu, I would sorry like to interrupt you for because Ishmohit is back and
okay,
I
okay.
would
So
like to
then,
change the role. Yeah, I would like to make him the
please,
presenter.
okay,
And
sure.
yeah, I would Ishmohit, I made you the presenter so we can proceed with the Q&A. And we have
Right.
received many questions. So what we can do is I'm just starting the recording again. Just hold on a second. Okay, so I have started the recording again. Abhimanyu, you can now take it forward from here. You can ask the questions to Ishmohit as they are posted, and then after that we can yeah, proceed.
Right.
Yes, so Ishmohit, sir, I'll be reading the questions out to you, and you can answer them whichever you want to take. So
So
I
I think
think just let
I think would it be better if I just read them
yeah,
because
yeah, you can take it from the chat box itself. I think it is better for you. You can take whichever question you want.
right. So
Okay, perfect.
I'll just start taking the questions. So for me, yeah, definitely we'll just share the presentation afterwards. And before we proceed, so on 27 December, we are also conducting a webinar on chemical industry. So like if you want to attend that webinar, so you can just drop us a mail at info@soic.in. I'll just ask Ayush to share the link. And
I'll also share the invite link with our master list of 3,000 members. We have many members who are attending it today, but we had actually sent an invite to some 3,000 members today. So we'll share the entire presentation join link also with all the members who are on our master list.
right. So, just coming to the question. So, someone has asked, ki, what are the websites that you use for return ratios? So, see, there are, you can use screener.in, you can also use Tijori Finance, and if you are very zealous, so you can also take out the annual reports and calculate the return ratios. So, Excel sheet, mein you can just put in the formulas, and like if you just use the download from screener function, तो everything comes automatically. So वहाँ से भी आप कर सकते हैं. And I think these 3-4 websites are more than enough. Annual reports are more than enough. आजकल तो companies annual reports में financial highlights में अपनी सारी return ratios दे देती हैं, ROE, ROC, debt upon equity. So that just gives you a good insight. Name so you can use screener.in, you can use Tijori Finance, and you can also use like and people also use morningstar.in. So these 3-4 websites, I think, capital. So मैं अपने इन्वेस्टेड कैपिटल में कितना प्रॉफिट आफ्टर टैक्स अर्न कर रहा हूँ, मेरे को आरओआईसी कुछ चीज का आइडिया दे रहे हैं. ROC is basically operating profit, that is your EBIT upon capital employed. So what the difference can be? So ROC is telling you how much operating profit you are making on your capital employed. So some interpretation can also be like this: कि the capital employed is a much wider term than invested capital. तो ROC में जो हम capital employed की बात करते हैं, so that is basically some like how people calculate it. That is debt plus equity. total debt plus total equity that is there in the business. Whereas when we come to invested capital, so some people, like, there are different interpretations, but some people what they typically like to do is कि invested capital माने कि कितना capital मैंने invest कर रखा है अपने business के अंदर. So what they do is that they take net fixed assets, कि इस business में fixed assets कितने हैं, plus net working capital to get an idea of the invested capital, right? So this is the difference between the two. And I think apart from this, back testing, I do not do back testing because we are not into that. Maybe we can also use trend line for back testing, so that I think might be there. So top 10 ratios, see ROC, ROIC, operating margin. I like to classify businesses in terms whether this is a low margin business, whether this is a high margin business, what is the risk on the supply side. So there is actually, truth to be told, there is no one fixed formula in investing. कोई formula है नहीं यहाँ पे. आपको लोग आके बोलेंगे कि मैजिक फॉर्मूला है, कोई आपको आके बोलेगा कि 10 की पी के नीचे ले लो. There is no formula in investing. If investing was based on formulas, so mathematicians would be the one जो इंडिया में शायद से सबसे ज्यादा रिटर्न कमा रहे हो. So long term investing doesn't consist of formulas, it just consists of getting the basic understanding of the business right. So वो चीज आपको करनी पड़ेगी. I think you can watch few of our videos to get an understanding की what we are like deeply talking about. Cloud computing, currently out of my circle of competence, right? Am I audible to everyone? Okay, great.
Yeah, yeah, you're audible.
Okay, just a second, I'll just take more questions. Sometimes ROC is different in Tijori than screener. If I just read that right, I think question was, I think. So best thing is, if you are finding numbers to be different, sometimes even I have found numbers to be wrong on Screener or Tijori Finance. So I just take the annual report and calculate it myself. So that's the easiest way if you're just finding some discrepancy. So annual report से तो ज़्यादा true number हो नहीं सकता, right? Because all these platforms are taking some data source. जैसे I think Screener, if I'm not mistaken, they are dependent upon capital line for their data. तो अगर capital line के data में कोई गलती होगी तो Screener के data में भी गलती आ ही जाएगी. So कहीं पे अगर आपको गलती लग रही है तो just open the annual report and calculate the formula yourself. Laxo and ICICI Lombard. See, Laxo is a good business. Surprisingly, the owner, owner used to be a neighbor. So used to be a neighbor, now no longer. This was 30 years ago. So I've been living in the same place, and he's also from West Delhi. So there are many good stories about the owner as well. बट यार वैल्यूएशन नहीं समझ आता है यार, मतलब 80-90 टाइम्स अभी फिलहाल आई डू नॉट अंडरस्टैंड. बिकॉज फुटवेयर इंडस्ट्री, yes, it's a great business, no doubt it's good, but I would still prefer, if I have to ever buy such valuations, I would still prefer an Asian Paints over a Laxo. Because paints industry globally has created wealth. Sherwin-Williams, if you check, one another company listed in US, and India, maybe if you just check, if you check Kansai and Nerolac, which is the third best player, even that has created wealth because it is a very very concentrated industry. So I would rather prefer that. If we just sit on fundamental, a lot of times portfolio negative. I'm not saying that we are either fundamental analysts or or technical analysts. We like to analyze businesses. So every 3 to 6 months, we also look at results. So you have to be very very clear in your thesis pointers. Get into industries which have tailwinds. If you're getting on value bets, so you have to look for triggers. Suppose if you buy something like an Ambika cotton today, so what is the key trigger that can play out that can lead to value meeting the intrinsic value? Because without any trigger of growth, value remains value, and eventually value trap, and value trap eventually means slow death, right? So that is not what you want in life. So yes, fundamental, you also have to look at triggers for growth, because without growth there is nothing in value, right? Value investing and growth investing are tied at the hip together. They are not two different aspects. ये value और growth का ये जो debate हुआ है, this is very very wrong in our opinion. Because see, if you're buying a like value stock, you're saying कि मैं इस PE पे ले रहा हूँ, इस PE पे ले रहा हूँ. अगर आप 5 की PE पे लेते हो तो वो 5 की PE पे ही रहेगा, right? Unless or until some or the other trigger plays out in that business. You need to look for those triggers जो हमने discuss करे थे कि कोई ना कोई trigger इसमें से आना चाहिए. whether you're betting on the industry cycle to recover or whether you're betting on something else to recover, without thesis, doing fundamental analysis is like walking in the dark, right? Without actually knowing where you're going. So you need to have thesis pointers ताकि आपको पता तो लगे कि आप सही जा रहे हो गलत जा रहे हो. तो ये अच्छी चीज है. फाइनेंशियल्स एग्जिट स्ट्रैटेजी माइन हैज बीन सपोज अल्काइल की बात कर लेते हैं तो buying was done at 700 rupees, exit was done at 28-2900 rupees, and basically when you cannot see sustainability, जैसे यहाँ पे margins अभी sustain, I do not think they can sustain. Analyst की reports आ रही हैं, like analysts have started valuing mines at DCF basis, so it's very very funny because 2017, 2018, 2019, literally no one wanted to touch this sector, right? So Adani Greens, right, just a second, I'll come to that. So again, now people are coming at DCF. So again, there is no point. तो यहाँ पे अगर 38 टाइम्स, तो अगर आप हिस्टोरिकली पी बैंड निकाल लो तो दिस इज एट द मोस्ट एक्सपेंसिव. सेकंड चीज करो सेलिंग के लिए, look at the 10-year margins, these are the highest margins. Look at the 10-year valuation, these are the highest valuations. So what do we call this? Peak valuation plus peak margins is equal to a lethal cocktail, right? Sterlite के अंदर ये सेम चीज हुई थी. अब alkyl amines के अंदर I think it is too expensive, it is at nosebleed valuations. So this is one of the reasons for me selling out. So I think again just a case study, because I think case study के through selling out is like selling can be only explained through case studies. Even buying can be only explained through case studies. कभी कभी selling का reason होता है कि पूरा sector ही headwind में चला गया. Suppose 2017 में if someone was there in real estate NBFCs and the entire sector went through a bust cycle, so that can also be another selling indicator. One more question someone asked for Adani Greens. So, or I won't get into such stocks because my focus is first on risk. So this is again a question of कि आप मॉल में अपनी वाइफ के साथ घूम रहे हो और आपको अपनी गर्लफ्रेंड दिख गई. तो fundamentally you should stay with your wife, which is a good thing to do. But some people still end up like leaving their wife, right? So which might not be a good thing in a long run, ideally, right? So just a discussion. So I do not have an opinion on companies like Adani Greens, Adani Group, because it's full of corporate governance issues. Depreciation policy जाके पढ़ लो आप उनकी. I think you will leave it then and there. But some people just want to ride the momentum, which I totally respect their philosophy. I do not. It just doesn't resonate with us, right? Just a second. What would you classify as high ROIC, high earnings growth business? 25% ROIC, 20% earnings growth. So high earnings growth would be somewhere anything which is more than 14-15%. So sometimes we've seen very, very high earnings growth of 25-30%. So that also becomes a part of that. And ROIC, I would typically prefer, अगर हम ROC में बात करें तो I would prefer bucket one to be more than 24-25% ROC. So that would be my bucket one in that aspect. And bucket three में क्या difference है? Bucket three में I'm looking at businesses which are touching 20%, which are not more than 25%, which are just touching 20-21%. So that would be my bucket one ideally, right? Thyrocare, Dr. Lal, sorry, no opinions as of now. So I haven't read the.
Ishmael, sorry to interrupt you, but you don't have to give any stock specific opinions. Like even
I'm
people
not
were asking in every webinar, we tell them कि यार आप लोग stock specific पूछोगे तो हमारा speaker reply भी नहीं करेगा. तो just ignore all the questions of the people जो stock specific पूछ रहे हैं.
See, I'm not trying to give any like stock specific or what. I just if I know something about a
हाँ
business,
नहीं नहीं
so
फिर भी
I'll just
इग्नोर कर देना मतलब because if someone is asking buy या sell का तो यार we are not giving you buy or sell type का
that
content
is
just
possible, right? So, companies in underpenetrated sectors, I think I was just reading a question, with great profit margins, with high valuations, would be a good choice for investment. So, ideally, this is what you look for. So, maybe a contract research and manufacturing services is one because barely DV's labs, just to give you an example, is still 1 or 2% of the entire market. So, they have still a lot of opportunity left. I do not own DV's labs, just as a disclosure. So there is one Syngene as well. So these players have a lot of growth runway left. These are very high margin players. So one thing you can apply over here as well. Do you always prefer leaders in a sector or a laggard? If yes, what triggers you look for? So triggers, I think I talked about जो presentation में, I think I usually share the presentation afterwards. So those are the triggers we are looking for. Paper industry में we do not have a clue because see at the end you need to have a portfolio of 15 stocks. You do not need to have a portfolio of 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 stocks in our way of things, like how we do allocation. So, so in our like SOIC intensive course, we discuss the SOIC allocation criterias and like how do we do allocation, right? So I do not own more than 15 stocks. So if I go more than 15 stocks, if I own 25, 30, 35, so the quality of the ideas starts diluting. I do have a tail portfolio. Tail portfolio माने जहाँ पे मैं 0.1% करके different ideas में experiment कर रहा हूँ. That won't be more than 5% of my entire portfolio. But ideally, you do not want to like invest in more than 15 stocks, right? Books, right? Book recommendations. Could you suggest some books on? Just a second, I was reading this question. Understanding how to value businesses. 100 questions are coming so fast, I couldn't read it. I think the question is, could you suggest some books on understanding how to value businesses? I think, if I'm not mistaken. So there are a couple of books. So one is this book by Bharat Shah of growth and long-term investing. So that is an unpublished book, but superb book in terms of understanding valuations. So it will just give you a hint कि India में क्या चल रहा है 20-30 years से, because not many books are written of valuation in Indian context, because problem is that we read Western literature, which is very applicable to their markets, but Indian market is a little different because we live in a different geography. So this is a very good book on valuations by Bharat Shah. It's an unpublished book, but once you get your hands on it, you wouldn't be able to drop the book before completely finishing it. I read that book twice a year just to maintain my philosophy of investing, just to like stay within those circles. Oh, it's a great book. One is it's by Bharat Shah of Long Term Value in Investing. Bharat Shah. I think you can write that. And a second book which I would suggest is McKinsey's Book of Valuation. So they write literature on valuation, I think in every 1 or 2 years. So usme I think there are 5 or 6 editions as of now. So after the fourth edition or the fourth, fifth edition, you can read. It's a very good book. So first 270 or 300 pages is what you want to read. उसके बाद कोई जरूरत नहीं है. But it's a 800 page book, but it reads like a breeze. मतलब it's so easy to read. So first 250 to 70 pages, I think is more than enough. उससे ज़्यादा I don't think you need to read. And valuation with these two books are the one here I would suggest, because McKinsey Book of Valuation is superb. And third valuation is really sorry, it just reminds me of this, is that one Michael Mauboussin documents on PE ratio, and the latest one on economic value added and DCF. How does a DCF works? So these two books are where these two three books are very important. And, papers by Michael Mauboussin. What is a PE ratio? What goes in a PE ratio? I think paper का नाम ही है. What goes in a PE ratio? And second one is apart from this, Michael Mauboussin का ये. I think जो recently Morgan Stanley के लिए उन्होंने लिखा है about the DCF, because see even I do not use a DCF, but DCF का आपको framework पता होना बहुत जरूरी है. अगर आपको फ्रेमवर्क पता है तो यू कैन ऑलवेज मेक रफ कैलकुलेशन. सो चार्ली मंगर बोलते हैं वन बफेट को, इवन दो ये लोग डीसीएफ करते हैं, बट आज तक हमने इन्हें डीसीएफ करते हुए देखा नहीं है, राइट? what could be the reason? So just think about it. You need to know the framework, right? Framework is important. Sectoral view for next 3 to 4 years. See, I'll just share mine. Ki I am invested in some of the niche manufacturing businesses. I'm also there in chemical. Pharma, mein I only have one or two. Like CRAMS, mein contract research and manufacturing services, and right. So this is some of the businesses that we own. Financials we do own. Platform, I'm looking at Indian companies, but I'm also looking abroad. So that is clear. So abroad we have been looking, and Small cap crams. See, Heikel could be one. Again, Suven Pharma भी थोड़ा सा बड़ा तो है ही, 8-9 हज़ार करोड़ मार्केट कैप पे है. But see, if you even look at something like if I just name like Suven Pharma, if I look at Syngene, जिनका CRAMS part है, these are very very small in terms of total size of opportunity. Let me just give you an example. So Lonza is a business that is the largest CRAMS player in the world. Lonza is one, Catalent is one. So just imagine this. Lonza has a tablet capacity of 250 billion tablets per year, right? But Lawrence Labs, just to give you an example, has a tablet capacity of 5 billion tablets per year. Just look at the difference in the sizes. Right? Humongous difference in sizes. Nearly 50x difference, right? Just shows you the runway that is there. एक small cap crams player और भी था, I think I'm forgetting the name, but उसमें tax issue बहुत बड़ा आ गया था, तो उसमें I don't think makes sense to look at these companies. So जहाँ पे भी corporate governance issue हम लोग दूर रहना prefer करते हैं, because बाद में कभी पता नहीं लगता. अपनी साइड से आप मतलब बच सकते हैं, but कभी कभी you also get like stuck in such businesses. But I think very very important. So this is thing. Wuxi Pharma is good, yeah. But Wuxi Pharma, actually, Syngene would be the one. Would be they're just replicating Wuxi Pharma's model. Con calls maybe pata lag jata. They are just saying this. Wuxi Pharma was also into development business and all this. Then they went into CRAMS. Then they went into biologic CRAMS. So Syngene had to come into manufacturing. Oh, Hiren Vedki, I think there is this interview in Masterclass with Super Investors, which is also a very good book, everyone can read. तो उसमें हिरेन वेद का is one which I would specifically recommend you to go through the entire interview couple of times throughout the year, just to get an idea of the things, right? Orient refractories, see, could be, but Orient refractories में see thesis, major thesis क्या है कि something like Honeywell automation can happen. So Honeywell automation has been used as a Honeywell automation in India has been used as a low cost manufacturing base to export to subsidiaries of Honeywell all over the world. And so this is the thing. So Orient में RHI Magnus Eta, which is the largest producer of like refractories in the world, is trying to merge the business with its Indian subsidiaries, which is at favorable terms for the shareholders, and they might end up using this as a low cost import, like low cost export base. So these are the plans of the management in the long run. अगर ये play out कर जाता है तो बहुत interesting trend हो सकता है, right? So you have to look for this. Which companies you will see, it depends upon company to company. How Heshman about Cecil, what do you think growth which will come from B2C business? First things first, what is the entire market size of B2C category?
Ishmohit, I'm just sorry interrupting you again. I'm reminding you it's 6:05. So now after this, whenever you need to leave, you can tell everybody that this would be the last question. So
No worries.
we'll stop it. Yeah.
See, I'll just take the CCL question, someone has asked, and I'll just take 2 or 3 more questions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Because you told me like 6 o'clock you needed to, so that is why I'm just reminding you.
No worries, no worries, right? And one more thing which we can do is ki, as last time, like we made a video on Q&A session. So in next 2 weeks, I'll put a video on Q&A session on YouTube itself. So just send the questions. Maybe all questions I wouldn't be able to take, but 20, 25, 30 questions I will definitely take up for the Q&A on YouTube, right? So
Guys, so what I would recommend is कि अभी जो questions answer नहीं हो पा रहे हैं ना, we will give you an email ID. जो whichever questions are not being able to answer right now, Ishmohit is not answering right now due to lack of time. We will give you an email ID. Please send those questions on that email ID once the session is over, because we will be publishing that email ID to send the questions. So then Ishmohit will make a video on his channel and he will answer whatever of those particular questions he can answer. And we'll see how it goes about that. Yeah. So Ishmohit, take the questions you want.
so on the CCL one, see, that is one business which I've tracked very, very closely for last 4 years. प्रॉब्लम सी B2C बिजनेस में है क्या कि मार्केट इंडिया इज अ वेरी वेरी predominantly tea drinking population. Just think of it. Why are they expanding more in South India, the B2C? Because South India mein people prefer coffee more over tea, like filtered coffee. Actually, I really like filter coffee. Whenever I go to South India, like I really enjoy a cup of filter coffee. In Delhi, maybe I've been doing that. So again, coming back to the question, B2C market in itself, India में is only hardly 2,000 crores for coffee. So I think 100 crores so they've already reached. So how much more market share can they take away at a very very low base from HUL, Nestle? So that is a question worth asking because see, before this, what happened was they also tried into B2C like segment earlier, but they failed, right? So this is the second attempt. Right? This is not their first. This is the second attempt into B2C. Is where I think they bought a marketing person from Dabur and they've set up a separate one. So interesting है, but see size of opportunity का ही सारा risk है. So I used to work at Perfect Research. So Ashish sir would say कि ऐसी कंपनी मेरे को मत दिखाओ जहाँ पे साइज ऑफ अपॉर्चुनिटी बहुत छोटी है. तो like he I think was instrumental in changing the way of things we look at. So Ambika Cotton, CCL, OCCL, सब में ये साइज ऑफ अपॉर्चुनिटी का रिस्क है. आई लाइक ऑल द थ्री बिजनेसेस, डू नॉट गेट मी रॉन्ग, बट at the end it's your money and capital pay if you want to make returns. India जैसी country में you have to look for good growing sectors with good size of opportunity. CCL, it's little constrained in terms of size of opportunity. Margin expansion might play out, right? PI Industries, can they do another is agro with surplus cash on books? Just as a disclosure, PI we do own, and like not at these prices. Prices have been lower. So before talking about PI and all, पहले मैं आपको ये भी बता देता हूँ. I've also made a lot of investing mistakes. So we are not कि हम investing success ही mistakes actually काफी सारी हैं. So we made a mistake in Heikel. We made a mistake in Ambika Cotton. CCL products I consider to be a mistake in terms of opportunity cost. I could have deployed that capital in other companies. OCCL, I was about to make the mistake, but again, final senses prevailed. So again, there are things. So PI, see, we like the management and execution has been tremendous. I'll just share the power of compounding with this, right? So PI took 20 to 30 years to get to this level, right?
Just a second, Ishmohit. I'll give you the control back. I'll give you the control back so you can share the screen. Uh,
I think there's no need to share the screen. I'll just
oh, okay,
answer.
okay, perfect, perfect.
So PI again, I think I was just in middle or something, right? So next जो पिछले 20-30 साल में उन्होंने करा है, such is the power of compounding, अगले 2 साल में वो होने वाला है, right? Revenues 3,000 करोड़ के हुए in last 20-30 years, but in next 2 years it will literally double from here. Like the revenue just based on order book and the capex intensity we have seen. So a good management, when given capital, will always keep creating more and more optionalities to keep redeploying that in higher growth areas. आज पीआई में प्रॉब्लम क्या है इसको समझते हैं. पीआई 8 या 10% मार्केट ऑलरेडी हो चुका है पीआई फॉर एग्रोकेमिकल क्रैप्स. एग्रोकेमिकल क्रैप्स इज ऑफ 500 like $5 billion in size, out of which PI I think is already reaching 500-600 million dollars in size. So, what has to be done is to keep expanding your horizons and keep expanding your opportunity size. You need to enter a new segment. This is why 2000 crore का QIP हुआ है and 10% of the business आज भी pharma intermediate से आ रहे हैं. So this QIP would maybe if the management what they have done in the past, जो इस agro में they've done a like fantastic acquisition because ROC, ROIC, everything has expanded within 1 month of acquisition. Is that if a suitable candidate is acquired at something like Isagro valuations, or if they can turn that around, could be really really interesting from here itself. क्योंकि आज अगर 2-2.5 हजार करोड़ कैपिटल एम्प्लॉयड है, 2,000 करोड़ QIP आपके पास और आ रखा है पैसा, So in the con call itself, if you listen between the lines, so they say we can still redeploy 3,000 crores at same rates of return. We are seeing such opportunities. It just gives you a signal, because I wouldn't bet against such a management which has which has done wonders in its line of business. You can consider me biased, but if something goes wrong in PI, so that is also possible, because acquisition risk to her business mein aata hai. But they've demonstrated that they can acquire smartly as well. But again, acquisition का risk हमेशा रहता है, तो risk को पहले लेके चलो. जैसे पिरामल में क्या कहानी थी आज से 3 साल पहले, like he's the Warren Buffett of India, or he's the acquirer of India. And now what's the story? You diversified from a good business into a diversified bad business. So narrative का game है, right? I do not have a view on current valuations of buying or selling, right? So it is just my view, and the next 2-3 years में uh, what happens is कि यहाँ से अगर earnings, अगर revenue 2x होता है, तो just think earnings 2x से ज़्यादा होंगे, because operating leverage will also play out, right? So PE ratios is not a good way to value. So valuations are pattern recognition. आप जितनी दिन रहोगे इन्वेस्टिंग के अंदर, आप जितने टाइम रहोगे, एंड इफ यू आर नॉट एरोगेंट, लाइक यू हैव टू स्टे हम्बल. Like one thing which has been the biggest learning of looking at other investors, I've met people who have destroyed themselves. I've met people who have been extremely successful. Extremely successful. One thing which was very common was humbleness, right? They always respect the market first before stating their opinions. And I think very, 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 very important to survive in the long run. Because अगर आज से मैं 25 साल इन्वेस्टिंग में सर्वाइव कर जाता हूँ, I've done my job, right? I will be financially well off. I'm like, in terms of I'll be financially free if I just need to survive for 15-20 years. Market has the blessings for everyone, right? So I think with this we'll conclude. Kopran, Naveen, Florin, every question I'll just take in the Q&A. Really sorry if I haven't been able to answer. Really apologize because of time constraint. I just have to go, like, so really sorry. Alkyl amines, current auto cycle to alkyl amines. मतलब in just my opinion, I'm not really so मेरे को नहीं समझ आती वैल्यूएशन इस केस में इतनी ज़्यादा. So thank you so much for taking the time out, and thank you to Ayush as well for hosting us once again. And जितने भी questions are, guys, just mail them to us, mail them to Ayush. We'll be coming up with a video soon in next 2 weeks. Thank you. I think Ayush, I'll be logging out, right?
Yeah, just before you log out, Ishmohit, I would like to just give a thank you note. So, firstly, I'd like to thank you, for joining us today, and again giving 2 hours of your time at such a short notice, and enlightening us and all the people at Finvents. And we're really thankful for you for presenting us again. Okay, so you can log off now, and the people, we will be doing a final presentation